intention of justice is to see that the guilty people are proven guilty and that the innocent are freed. Only we have a problem here.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are taking a look at this case from a psychological perspective.
Fun. Everybody was having a good time.
Does Brian Albert strike you as the kind of guy who's always having fun? No. And here's a news flash for this judge. Mental health professionals have solutions.
They made an arrest. They got the guy for Danny.
It was like a mix between sadness and anger, because that's the moment for him when he really started to believe that his mother was involved.
The only corresponding records in the other databases are from previous days.
There is a huge psychological component to what was going on here. And according to this group, Brian Albert Jr. gets like the most celebrated birthday hour of anybody ever. Like every 30 seconds, someone's like, "Happy birthday!" John totally seemed like such a cool guy.
John makes me like
Somebody jumps in as a journalist, draws attention to it in a light that is not good for the prosecution. I mean, and there are serious allegations of corruption in the DA's office and the state police.
It's not like his 21st birthday. Hi, loophole lawyer. How are you?
It feels great. It feels good to be back.
I'm going to go with this yours, because certainly I've gotten a lot of love from everybody today, which feels nice.
You are very, very loved. And I can't believe we get to spend your birthday with you. Happy birthday!
Text messages read back as if he's the aggrieved party.
Hold on. Have each of you been called murderers?
Who wants to be the one to give Matt the bad news?
I wanted to prove or to demonstrate.
I don't know where the dog was. I didn't hear any barking. Her name is Sunny. She was named after Santino Corleone.
This is his face.
Hey, hi everybody, there's my Johnny. Hello, that's my Johnny.
Sunny barks if you walk by my window and sneeze. You're not really going to deny this, are you?
it's so weird. It's like the Inside Out, upside down. And Narnia.
I would get at some point in time and fashion and then turn it over.
Know if we had it enough, or we had it all, I should say. Kill me.
Not having any observable or detectable electrical activity would be asystole.
Means death. 3 separate tab IDs. The thing he had to encourage her to do was not to testify.
You know, and Julia Albert responds to the text message from John, and she goes, "My biggest fear in life is ending up on Turtle Boy."
Stop it.
Oh, you never seen that? Oh, I got it.
You're not going to like this, though. You're going to disagree with me on
Just say it. I like the
disagreement.
conflict.
Okay.
Yeah, the disagreement.
Let's say the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
People are terrified of him. They're absolutely terrified of him. And how do we know that? We know that from Mega Motion. Just another day for me, right? Which means it was just not an ordinary day for somebody else. Just when you thought you were out, pull you back.
Karen Reed plots. She fabricates a conspiracy.
I am just a person who likes to understand. That's going to increase the likelihood that we're going to take some action.
Here she is.
My sister Jillian, yes.
It's funny. But then he's got part of his shirt untucked. His back pocket is kind of hanging out.
Testify that. So, testify that. So.
And showing solidarity, you can see them there.
It's about getting justice for John O'Keefe. There clearly is an issue of integrity.
How dare they?
Justice for all. Only we have a problem here.
Oh boy, we sure do. Welcome, welcome, welcome everybody. This is the I Don't Belong Here show. And I, of course, am your host, Samantha Benigno. I am a behavioral scientist, a career psychotherapist, still a sixth year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, a master's level psychologist and counselor. Well, and today we will be featuring our third installment of The Innocents. So this is a video premiere, which is going to be very exciting. We're going to have to wing it. We're going to watch it. And I think what I'm going to do, we'll watch it a little bit and then I'll pause it and then we can talk about it. Because part of why I decided to do it this way today, because remember, we had been in the middle of analyzing Brian Higgins' testimony, and we will go back to that. But what hung me up and what tripped me up and started much of this, right? As you know, going way back to January, February, I had been looking into what's going on in the house at 34 Fairview Road before John and Karen pull up, right? That's the question. That was what I was trying to assess. Like, it dawns on me as I'm listening to these people testify about that night that the time that they're talking about is before Karen is even near their house. Now, this should be a layup, right? It should be like the easiest testimony on the planet because all you have to do is communicate to us as a witness, right? What you were doing. I walked in, I did this. I mean, it's really boring stuff, right? Like, it's not going to be exciting, but it should be detailed. It should be easy to come up with something. And what do we get instead? Oh, we just get incredible bullshit. And I have to tell you, I might be like a little grumpy with this today because I've been now for days knee deep in these people's bullshit, just like so in it. And at the same time, I know Melanie's been doing a tremendous job. I mean, what an amazing job. I don't know how she does it, man. That woman has stamina, and she's done an incredible job of going through the lawsuit against Aiden and Karen. And she's really brought up some very good points. And that's for like a whole nother discussion and a whole nother day. But man, the stamina on Melanie, I don't know how many days she's in now, but listening to some of these claims, like I can probably listen for about 10 minutes. 10 minutes, and then I'm so irate and so outraged, I have to be like, nope, putting this away, gonna go do something else now because I can't take it. Not while I'm also simultaneously going through all of their testimony, because it's just, yeah. So you're going to see today, we are going to try to bring all of the things, all of the concepts, all of the discussions that we've had in the first two videos so far. I think we're going to be bringing together in this third one. This one's a little bit longer because there's a lot, you guys. This is a lot. There's a lot. So I'm excited to be able to go through it with you all. And I will definitely be in the chat with you while we're watching this. Here, let me just get some of y'all's in before we get started. Qbert, hi Qbert. I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. Sends $9.99. Hi Samantha, great to have you on, but I've had a long active day, so I'm just going to sit back, relax, close my eyes, and listen. Thanks for everything from most of Canton. Well, Qbert, thank you also. You know, you're on the front lines, like you're in it to win it, and I can't even imagine. It's tough, even just being here in New York City. You know, it's tough because I'm close. Like I feel like I'm almost too close to these folks. So, but you're in it, you're making a difference living in that community. And I thank you for all that you're doing, without a doubt. Welcome our new members, Splash of Fred 2022. And hello, Liz Rose. She sends $4.99. I watched Loophole's new video at 4:55. Peg said Karen had a psych eval. I think she fibbed, had to work it into the testimony. That's interesting. I wonder was it psych eval, or was she talking about the psych evaluation that they gave her at the hospital? I didn't see the newest video from Vince, so I will definitely take a look, because that might be what she's referencing. I don't know. Because remember how they like put her in, essentially they sectioned her that morning so that they could, have eyes on her or whatever. Because they already were kind of assuming she was involved, I think, even that morning, it sounded like, from some of the FOIA documents and phone calls and things that we got. That was sort of my assumption. So I'll definitely take a closer look at that, though. I mean, look, if I can't entirely blame Peg O'Keefe for hating Karen. It's such an easy thing to do. It would be so easy to blame everything on her if I'm in the family, right? So easy. And no one wants to go against this grieving family. I mean, nobody. And I get all of it. It's tragic, though, because when you hear some of these, I don't know what they're called legally, but inside the suit, they're like numbered claims. And some of them are just like, even in a world where these people were innocent, would be absurd, right? Just not true. I mean, just false, like on their face. So, I don't know. I don't know. It's very tough for me. I have, again, today, this happens sometimes. Like when you're in, investigating this case, every once in a while, I'll have a day or a moment where I'm re-traumatized by the realization that these people are responsible for John O'Keefe's death. And it's like physical, and I like get choked up, and I don't know what to do with all of these overwhelming emotions, because it's devastating, even though it's something I already know. It's like, this happens. It just keeps happening. I don't even know. I couldn't count how many times now, but it's just devastating. It's just devastating. The whole thing is devastating. So today, though, we're going to start. I want to get going because it's longer. It's longer than even my usual videos. I try not to go over an hour. This one's a little bit over. There's a lot of analysis, and I really want to hear your thoughts because I don't know. I guess I have a theory, and maybe this is the theory. So maybe this video is my theory. So I want to hear your opinion on it. Got a bad feeling? Hi, got a bad feeling. Oh, we've been a member together for 1 month. Happy 1 month anniversary. Samantha, you look gorgeous as usual. Thank you so much for all of your work. Appreciate you more than you know. Well, I appreciate you more than you know. Got a bad feeling. And thank you for being a member for 1 month. Happy anniversary. All right, here we go. So I'm going to start the video. It starts with just a little recap from the end of part 2. So here it is, without further ado, The Innocents, part 3. You have to ask yourself an important question. Why the hell does it matter? Why can't they be in the family room? Who gives a shit where they are, right? Unless all along, what Karen Reed claimed really from the start, that she saw John O'Keefe walk in to the side door and into the house, unless that's true.
Do you think?
Did you see John go in the house?
I did.
You saw him go in the house?
I saw John go in the house.
And I saw him reach the breezeway door.
Then it makes sense why you wouldn't want to be in the family room, doesn't it? And there's something else in the family room that we should probably talk about. And well, now is as good a time as any other. And that is a big, beautiful stone fireplace.
These proceedings are here to see that justice is done. And justice is, as any reasonable person would tell you, the finding of the truth. Only we have a problem here.
Oh my God, my head is spinning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the I Don't Belong Here show, and I am your host, Samantha Benigno. I am a behavioral scientist, a career psychotherapist, a sixth-year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, a master's level psychologist and counselor. And today, we are back for part 3 of our adventure into what happened the night that Boston police officer John O'Keefe lost his life. And just a reminder, what you are about to hear here are entirely my opinions. And you do not have to believe a word I say. Because this is America. Lucky for us, it's a free country. And you can take what I say or leave it. Now, it has been a pretty freaking interesting 24 hours. I'm so overwhelmed right now, I barely know where to start. So first, we saw somebody, well, I guess it wasn't a somebody, it was Kate Peter, otherwise known as Masshole Mafia on Twitter. She leaked these photos from the funeral in New York that apparently they are alleging are from the funeral for the 2 fallen New York police officers that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert testified to being at the 28th and the 27th, I guess, of January 2022, that Thursday and Friday. There were the services, and then there was an actual funeral. And you can see in these photos, we have Brian Higgins, Kevin Albert, and the chief of police, Kenneth Berkowitz. But these are the photos that allegedly came from that time. Now, interestingly, just having, been familiar with other people's deception analyses of Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, like Sergio Gennaro, I know that he had done an analysis of both of those testimonies and determined that there's deception there. And I'm not sure if he determined that they didn't go to the funeral or that they left the funeral early. I don't remember exactly what the conclusion that he came to was. But somebody apparently leaked these photos to try to prove that they were actually at the funeral. And I think that's fantastic because what we see from these photos is what they were being deceptive about. Apparently they really were there, but what they didn't want us to know was that they were with the chief of police from the Canton Police Department, Chief Kenneth Berkowitz. So we learned what the deception was, and I am very appreciative of Kate Peter for releasing these photos. I can only assume this is that funeral. They may have, I suppose, been at a different funeral, but if we are going based on when the chief of police was still the chief of police, it's wintertime, it's a giant New York City funeral for police officers, I'm willing to safely suggest that these are photos from that funeral. And I think it's wonderful that we now know what the deception was. So what they were hiding in their testimony is that they were with the chief of police that day. Apparently didn't want us to know that. So I don't know if he drove back with them or if they drove back with him. I don't know. But that is very obviously what they are being deceptive about. So thank you to them for releasing those images, confirming that there was deception, and now we know what it was. I then get this message from Emily C., who I love. She's like one of my favorite people in the whole world. And it is a link to, to Boozy Beauty, who I also really like. And she has posted an image that she got from somebody on the other side. I didn't even take the time to figure out who it came from, who alleges that this image of, I think, Brian Albert Jr.'s feet on the island in the kitchen is from the night of the 28th 8th into the 29th of Brian Albert Jr.'s birthday. And they are at the kitchen island. And I think it's amazing because obviously somebody felt the need to try to prove that they were really, I guess, at the kitchen island. Now, I personally believed that they were at the kitchen island at some point, always, because they did get food delivered from D&E. And I assume that when they got that food delivered, they would have naturally moved the party into the kitchen, and specifically the kitchen island. And Sarah Levinson, at an earlier part in her testimony, tells us that. And I haven't put that evaluation or analysis of Sarah's testimony out, but I had determined that that was a truthful statement. So I believed that they were in the kitchen at the island.
At that point, we were more around the island, but
during some earlier part of the night. So I just want to speak to this briefly, because it did wind up being important as I was going through my analysis that you're going to see. So I do think, I don't know, you guys might know, I don't know where Boozy Beauty got this photo of that's allegedly from that night. And as I said, I'm okay believing that it is from that night. I could see a world where somebody's desperate enough to prove that they really were in the kitchen to post that. So I'm comfortable saying, oh yeah, that could definitely be. Sure. Something about even just getting a vibe. It's so silly, right? But something about that image, it's just, Brian Jr.'s feet on the counter, wine, you see the cups they're drinking and a Truly can. And then I don't know who the girl is that's sitting there. I don't think it's Julie or Sarah, but it's interesting that somebody would feel compelled to release that for sure. And something about the vibe of that image did do something, because when I went to bed and then woke up the next morning, something kind of hit me that we're going to see. So I hope they release more. I hope there are more images. Definitely send them to me if you see them. And if you have them, please send them. I would love to see more from that night. Because I do think it helps. It just sort of like it helps you to understand what the hell was going on in that house. And that's what this question is. That's what I want to know, right? That's what these videos are all about. Like, what the hell was going on in this house? Oops, sorry. Sometimes waiting a minute, taking a breath, sitting with information is a good thing. So I've been sitting with this image that was dropped by somebody that is from allegedly the night of Brian Albert Jr.'s birthday, on the night that John O'Keefe loses his life. And it occurs to me that maybe the kids are hanging out in the kitchen. And maybe that's why Brian Higgins and Brian Albert are in the family room, because they're talking. Because Brian Higgins wants a few minutes alone with Brian Albert to talk about what's going on with John and Karen. And maybe because everybody,
Brian Sr. and Mr. Higgins, were standing.
Albert and Brian Higgins were in the, I guess you'd call it the TV room area, just standing and talking.
I know at one point my husband and his friend Brian were in our family room, so I kind of went in there and was talking to them.
At one point, briefly, Brian Albert showed me some photographs, family. I believe primarily it might have been of his son, who had recently been in the Marine Corps.
Mom or my dad were showing Brian Higgins like family photos of one of my brothers who's in the Marines, And that would have been in like the family room area.
Everybody but Brian Albert tells us they were talking in the family room. Now, they lie about why they're in there, but they tell us that they're in there. And I always thought that that was an excuse, a way to get them alone somewhere. But maybe that is really where they were. And maybe the reason why Julie Nagel panics and says family room isn't because that's where they were, but because that's the place in her mind that she knows she's not supposed to say. Maybe it's leakage. Now, for those of you that don't know, leakage is when you're holding in your mind something that you know you are not supposed to say. And because part of your brain is so actively trying to remind you not to bring it up, not to say this one thing, no matter what, it leaks out. It finds a way, whether it's rational or not, it comes out, either directly or indirectly. The word just is actually leakage. People use that. Before we get into the just, I want to piggyback on this and just say, you know how if you're driving past a car accident and someone says, oh, there's a car accident, you have to look. It's sort of like that, right? Like leakage, in the way that I'm talking about it specifically with Julie, is it's the thing that, you know, someone tells you, don't look, don't turn around, but there's somebody famous behind you. What is the first thing that you want to do, right? Your first instinct is turn around and you almost can't help it. This is something similar, only, you know, it's so heavy. Like the pressure of the situation was so heavy because here they are, you know, this is a courtroom in a murder trial. Julie Nagel is a casual person, generally speaking. You know, the formality of this whole thing had to have been oppressively anxiety producing. So I imagine that there is a world where she's holding the family room in her head, saying, whatever you do, don't mention that room. Whatever you do, don't mention that room. Whatever you do, not because she's in that room, not even because they were in that room, but because she knows she's not supposed to mention it no matter what. And then it leaks out. So that, I'm not necessarily saying I'm sure that's what happened, but I think it is very possible that that is the reason that we end up seeing her out the family room and then panic, which I'm going to show you again in a minute. So first, we're going to go through how the word just is also an example of leakage. And that's why it's the word of choice for so many guilty people. That's why when you hear 911 calls and they're like, I just got here, officer. I don't know how my husband is dead on the floor. You know, it's also leakage. So that's what we're going to talk about first. And what it means is not only that they're trying to minimize something, but that in their mind, they're holding what they were really doing while they're telling you they were doing something else. So what they're saying is, we were just doing this thing, not this thing that's in my mind. That's why it's the choice word for people that are being deceptive.
Just having a good time, just hanging out, talking, enjoying each other's company.
No, we were just laughing.
Yeah, we were all just in that one area.
I won't ask you what was said because you weren't there.
Okay.
He was just kind of standing in the kitchen.
Just socially hanging out with each other.
And Colin was just kind of standing there.
Brian's Jr.'s dad took upstairs to let the dog out back. But he just opened the back door and watched him from the door. And
So we would just kind of open the back door, let her out. She would kind of do her thing, and then she would come back in when she was done.
brought him right back upstairs. So that was the only time he went upstairs, but.
And they were in there just talking.
So after I brought the dog up, I just came back down and hung out with everybody else.
I'm through Brian Jr., just hanging out with them a few times, so.
Yeah, I think people were just sitting around.
Just know them through the family.
And just talking and hanging out.
So there's just sort of it's It's like a doorway, but there's no door there.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. I was just thinking of her as my sister, like the sibling.
So what if the reason why Julie panics when she says family room, then she's like,
Yeah, we all were still in the same room in the family year. The floor plan, which is the kitchen and the dining room area. Yeah.
At any point in time, well, let me ask you this. They come sometime shortly around or after midnight, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And about how long after they arrived, or about what time was it that you left the house for the evening?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
What if it's because that's not where they were, but that was the one place in her mind that she was not supposed to mention no matter what? And what if that's why she tells us that she's using the front door all night? Because we know she wasn't. Everybody else has her coming and going from the side door. And Sarah Levinson, who she was with, tells us that she was using the side door, the family room door. Could it be because she's just walled off the family room because she knows that's off limits? Maybe. And maybe that's why it leaks out. Because it is leakage. One way or the other, it's leakage, right? I mean, either that's where they were and she knows she's not supposed to say it, so she screws up because she gives it up, or it's a mistake. It's her saying the things she's not supposed to say. So it's possible that there is a group hanging out in the kitchen, but that when John O'Keefe walks into that house, Brian Higgins and Brian Albert are in the family room. And one more thing I want to say that I didn't say, I don't think here. Another reason why I think it is possible, more evidence, I mentioned it last video, I think, for them being in that family room. So in other words, imagine this. Brian Higgins pulls Brian Albert into the family room. Maybe he even went with, maybe Higgins goes with Brian Albert to take the dog out back. Or maybe the dog really is walking around. Brian Albert maybe lets the dog walk around the house when he's home. So maybe he does take the dog out. Dog comes back in. Dog is with him and Brian Higgins in the family room. John knocks on the door, peeks his head in like, hey guys, and walks in. One of the things that sort of another clue, right? Everybody in the house tells us that the two of them are in the family room. And Jen McCabe tells us that's where they are when she gets there. This is really important because the rest of them, they're like at some point, at some point, that's the word, the frame, right? At some point, they were in the family room, that whole thing. But Jen tells us it's right when she gets there. And that's really important information, right? Hello. That's exactly the moment that we would need to know who's in the family room. So she's placing the two of them in the family room. Why they're there, of course, is silliness, right? The whole thing about the sun and the Marines, and it's just nonsense. But the only person that doesn't tell us that they're in the family room, interestingly enough, is Brian Albert Sr. At first, I thought that was a mistake. I figured, he relayed a message and everybody else just screwed the message up and got it wrong. But actually, now I think he changed his story at the 11th hour and put them upstairs in Jack's room because he realized that it was incriminating to put himself in the family room. So even though everybody else put him in the family room, he put himself in Jack's room upstairs, figuring, who cares? The jury's probably not going to remember, what anyone says. And of course, by the way, I don't even know. I mean, I'd love to know from Alan Jackson or David Yannetti, did they catch these discrepancies? They probably didn't because, are you really paying that close of attention in the middle of the trial? Those guys have got their hands so full. They've got agendas, they've got stuff that points they know they have to make. Are they really listening so closely that they're able to catch the discrepancies that are this small throughout all the testimony, right? Because remember, we've had years now to sit with a lot of this, and they didn't, right? They were getting it in real time. So that's another piece of evidence that I think supports Brian Higgins, Brian Albert in the family room, the dog with them, and John, right? Now, here's what I'll say about Karen. So Karen tells us that she sees John go into the side door. And I will tell you that from analyzing her language, she believes it. So Karen Reed believes that she saw John go into that side door. She believes it. Now, is it still possible that she didn't see it? Sure. I guess, yeah, right? Maybe she invented an image and now believes it after rehearsing it long enough. But Karen Reed believes that based on what I was able to analyze from her language. So I have to believe she believes that John walked in that side door. Could I see a world where that's what happened? Definitely. So let's keep watching. The reason why there's this huge effort to try to make it sound like it's all open, like it's a one open floor plan, is to make it seem impossible that somebody could be in one part of the house and not have seen what happened in another. And so this is also important. And the reason why I say that is because all of us, myself included, for sure, for a very long time, just could not believe that Sarah Levinson and Julie Nagel, especially, those two in particular, right? The family is the family. Like any family, if you get yourself into trouble, the family's going to stick together. But these two, it was so hard for even Karen's defense team, it seemed like, to believe that they were in on it or to believe that other people could believe they were in on it. So David Yanetti's line of questioning during trial number 1 was to say, like, is it possible that he walked in the house and you guys didn't know because you had music playing and, people are drinking? And is it possible that he would have walked in and you didn't see him do it, right? So they were sort of implying, like I said, particularly during the first trial. The second trial, they changed their strategy, so they just weren't focused on the third-party culprit stuff. But during the first trial, they were not arguing that Julie and Sarah were aware of what happened. They were trying to get around it. And I've seen a lot of people do that because it's very, very difficult for all of us to believe that these two would be in on the murder of a police officer, right? I mean, it's really hard. So, for example, and like I've said to you before, and you already know this, but Vince currently, a loophole lawyer, believes that Brian Higgins was outside, that he calls John over and a fight happens in the driveway. For a long time, I believed that too, because it was so hard for me to believe that Sarah and Julie saw this. Now, that is what confirmation bias means, right? It means that my bias was so strong that it was blocking my ability to see objectively the information that was coming in. Just like my bias to hang out at this kitchen counter if I lived in this house is so strong that I was like, oh yeah, they're definitely, that mistake from Julie is meaningless because they're definitely hanging out in the kitchen because that's where I would hang out if I lived in this house, right? So important when we're going through, because you're going to hear a lot of testimony in the next hour, and important as we go through it to try to be as objective as possible when you hear it, because the language is there, you guys. It's there. Like, I can't even believe it. Like I said, I spent the last day just my jaw to the floor kind of, because I can't even believe some of the language that it's been right in front of us this whole time and I just didn't see it. So I'm going to shut up so we can keep going. Shutting up. How great is it that somebody felt the need to defend the idea that they were in the kitchen? I will admit my first instinct was like, what are we, 9? That you're going to put out a picture of you at the island sometime earlier in the night and expect that to clear it all up. But I am absolutely happy to take more photos from that night if you want to send them. In fact, you can send them to me personally. And if you insist that I not show everybody, I won't show everybody. Fine. I can keep a secret. I'm a therapist. I am great at secret keeping. So I'm happy to take a look. But I'm not sure that this does much in terms of clearing up the issue. Although it does, I guess, prove that Brian Jr. wears Converse, that they were drinking quite a bit of wine, which is new information. We had not heard that from anyone before, to my knowledge, that they were drinking Trulies like they told us. And it does speak to the fact that somebody somewhere is a little desperate to show us that they were hanging out in the kitchen. And that does, and I'm not saying this to be a jerk, it does have a feel of desperation to it, doesn't it? Back to reality.
Well, as we say, he has a pattern head injury on the back of his scalp, where there is a tearing of the scalp.
This fine young lady is Dr. La Posada. She is the former chief medical examiner for the state of Rhode Island. And I have to tell you, she's probably the most experienced human being I have ever seen in a courtroom. It takes over an hour just to go through her qualifications. And it's for that reason that Judge Beverly Cannoni has no choice but to allow her to opine on what happened to John's arm, and that the wound pattern on the arm is most likely caused by an animal. She won't let her say dog, although she does end up saying it anyway. She allows her to say animal.
No, Mr. Jackson said animal.
I'll leave it at animal if that's what I can get. I'll take what I can get.
In her experience, Mr. Jackson, you have to lay a foundation. In her experience, seeing animal bites, this is consistent with what she has seen in an animal bite.
We are not concerned with that, however, here. What we are concerned with is Dr. La Posada's testimony regarding John O'Keefe's injury to the back of John O'Keefe's head.
Then when we look at the skull, he had massive skull fractures that started in the back of his head. They came around to the front. They went under the base of his brain, under the skull, under the base of the brain, and it came into the front of the skull at the orbital plates and fractured that, and that caused some bleeding in his upper eyelids. When the brain was examined inside the brain, I could see that the brain had become swollen.
I hate to be rehashing all of this again. I spent the entire last year creating video after video, going through in detail every one of these points already, and I feel redundant doing it again now. But I have to say, Dr. La Posada is critical because she gives us two bits of information that basically change everything. Because for a long time, lawyers, people on the other side argued, well, we can't imagine that Brian Albert is going to put a police officer outside to die in the cold. So it must have been an accident. Karen Reed must have hit him. Well, I would agree with that. That never made sense to me either. And of course, Dr. La Posada answered that question completely by explaining that there is no sign of hypothermia in John O'Keefe's body.
Do you have any training or experience in diagnosing hypothermia in individuals?
Oh, yes.
Have you conducted autopsies of individuals who've suffered from or died from hypothermia?
Yes, many.
How many?
100 or more, and then I've supervised my assistants who've also diagnosed the same death from decrease in body temperature.
Have you ever engaged in any death investigation, aside from the actual autopsies, death investigations in which the cause of death was deemed to be hypothermia?
Yes.
How many times would you say you've undertaken that type of investigation?
At least 100. We know that normal body temperature is around 98, and we know that then at the hospital that Mr. O'Keefe's rectal temperature was around 80. So we know that his temperature went down. So there are two ways the body temperature can get down. It can get down while you're alive, or a dead body also cools when it's in a cold environment. This is the Mr. O'Keefe's stomach, which has been opened up when we're looking at the inside. We see that the mucosa is a little bit red, and there's a little bit of increased blood flow here, and this is the normal pattern of the inside of the stomach. It's kind of ridged. That's called rugae. That's the normal folds inside the stomach. But there's no ulcerations here. So the diagnosis of death due to hypothermia is not appropriate.
This woman is such a boss, right? Just the way that she talks, and she's just so sure. And because we spent over an hour, I timed it once. I don't remember what it was now, but I did time how long they spend just on going through her resume. It's literally right around an hour. It's insane how much time it takes. And Alan Jackson, to his credit, he had to do it because it was the only way that Beverly Cannoni was going to allow her to opine on the dog bite injury, or the dog wounds. So, I mean, Alan Jackson is definitely a boss, even if just for finding her. I mean, she wound up being, I think, even, as important certainly as ARCA because of this right here. The no hypothermia is absolutely critical. It completely changes this case. And the Commonwealth kept, beating this horse, even during the trial. You had Hank Brennan trying to argue it to a degree. Karen left him in the cold, left him to die. And it's like, no. Nobody left him to die because he was very much, without a shadow of a doubt, very, very dead, very, very fast. And that is the other thing that she is going to explain to us here now.
In his case.
Did you see, or do you see, any classic Wisniewski spots in Mr. O'Keefe's stomach lining or gastric mucosa?
No.
Do you observe any ulcers specific to Mr. O'Keefe's stomach lining?
No, there are no ulcers. It's a normal appearance of what we would call a gross specimen when you open the stomach.
And that makes perfect sense because the injuries to his skull, when she describes what they are so obviously immediately life-threatening.
How quickly, doctor, would you expect that this could cause, let's first talk about incapacitation.
Yes.
How quickly would someone be incapacitated after they suffer a coup contra coup injury of this magnitude with the concomitant injuries that you see in the brainstem?
Well, there would be two parts to what that injury would cause the body to do. First, there would be immediate unconsciousness because of the transfer of all the energy to the brain and the massive skull fractures. So that, so that would disrupt the normal function of the brain and produce immediate unconsciousness. Then the brain would start to swell, and within 15, 20 minutes or so, then that brainstem starts to go down the opening in the bottom of the skull, and then the blood vessels are broken, the brainstem gets compressed, and the centers in that brainstem which control the heart and the respiration then stop. So you go unconscious, brain swells, then you die.
That the idea that Hank Brennan tries to put forth that life-saving measures could have somehow reconstructed the base of his skull where all of your autonomic functions are, I mean, it's just silly. So that also helped to explain why this happened, because now you have a motive, because he's dead anyway. So why ruin our lives when we can't do anything to save his? So no hypothermia, and immediately John O'Keefe would have been dead. And by the way, Hank Brennan's Dr. Wolf, who I believe the Commonwealth paid $30,000, neurosurgeon.
Would you want a neurosurgeon to be conducting a death investigation?
To be performing an autopsy? No.
So you wouldn't want a neurosurgeon to perform an autopsy?
No.
Because you don't believe they're qualified.
I had to throw this in.
I don't believe they've had the appropriate training to perform an autopsy.
Echoed the same sentiment. While he didn't agree as to what caused the injury, besides they both agreed it was a fall, he said it could have been a fall on grass, hard grass, whatever. Irrelevant, because the point is they both agreed he would have been dead very quickly. This was not hours laying in the snow. And again, there is no hypothermia. And if you go back and listen to Scorty Bellow's testimony, she too hedges greatly on hypothermia.
In the absence of head trauma, hypothermia is a cause of death, but I'm not able to make that determination in this case because we do have the blunt impact injuries of head.
So that, you know what, I just got what she was saying there now, and it pissed me off a little bit because it's such a bullshit response. Basically, what she's saying is, you know, he died from this thing. And if he didn't die from this thing, then, you know, hypothermia might have been appropriate, but it's not because he died of this other thing. You know, it's just a bullshit way to get around the fact that she had put hypothermia on the death certificate or whatever the ME report the ME makes. She pisses me off a little bit, this lady, but that's okay. I should be grateful, though. I should be grateful because she did, you know, she stood her ground. She did not give in to the Commonwealth, who didn't get their manner of death because of her, because she said, I'm not putting down a car accident. There's no doubt that a car did not hit this man, right? So, got to give her credit. Still pisses me off a little bit, though. Let's take a closer look at these injuries to John O'Keefe's head, because there is some interesting information that has never really been fully addressed.
Well, as we say, he has a pattern head injury on the back of his scalp, where there is a tearing of the scalp, and then vertically above that, there is some little areas of scraping to the skin. So that tells me that Mr. O'Keefe went backwards onto something that had a little ridge, but it also had some irregularity to it to cause the different scrapes before you get to the tearing of the scalp. Mr. O'Keefe went backwards onto something that had a little ridge, but it also had some irregularity to it to cause the different scrapes before you get to the tearing of the scalp.
Okay, here is a trigger warning. If you don't want to see the scrape mark on the back of his head, I did do some blurring, so it's not so bad. But if you really don't like that stuff and you don't want to look at the scrape mark on the back of John O'Keefe's head, you can skip ahead now. Or just wait 5 minutes, because it's only about a 5-minute time that we spend on this part, but it's important. I did blur out the actual cut, like the tearing of the skin part. I myself had a hard time staring at, so I took that out. We're just going to look at the imprint, the marks that Dr. La Posada is talking about. Dr. La Posada is saying that he hits, and then the head moves up a little bit to make this scratch, these, she said, like little pencil marks.
So if I were looking at it, I would see the break in the scalp. Then I would see several sort of irregularly placed scrapes of the skin that kind of look like pencil marks. And so that means that something with granularity He hit first, then it moved up a little, broke the scalp, and then moved on a little bit above that.
You can almost see them. They're little dots, but they're like little, like almost like little wrinkles. If you can see that here. See those little scratches? Like she said, little pencil marks? I think that's what she's talking about, right? Like these are the scrapes. Ugh, man, this is not easy for me. Just so you know, I do not like looking at this at all. But you can really see what Dr. La Posada is talking about here. And you see this pattern in particular where there are indents with spaces in between.
Would you expect to see that if Mr. O'Keefe had fallen backward onto a perfectly flat surface?
No, it has to be a surface that has some small ridges in it to make those little vertical patterns.
And they're pretty big. I'm not sure that they're evenly sized. And I think that's interesting. It's not a perfect pattern, not the way you would, like if a tire imprints on something, you would expect to see a perfect imprint. This is messier than that. And you see this right here, this bigger kind of square. You almost can make out what could be scrapings from this brick fireplace. Now, I might be crazy because it's almost obvious. And I don't remember ever hearing this before, so I don't know if I'm losing it or what. And if you look at this almost like a backwards L on the left side of his head, actually, it's a U. It's not an L. And it's much wider than I first thought. It depends, you have to mess with the contrast on this image, but there's patterns in there, without a doubt. So when I look at this fireplace, we haven't been talking about this for a long time, so maybe I am seeing things, right? Maybe I'm crazy here, but if you look at, first off, look at this right here. There is a ledge here. You see how it comes out, like 2 inches, maybe not even, right there? So there's actually a ledge right there. In other words, somebody could have hit their head on this sharp ledge thing, maybe. Because remember how Dr. La Posada was saying that based on the way that the head injury appears to have happened, he both shattered the bottom of his skull while leaving a scrape mark on the top, right? Which essentially would be a step like this kind of thing right here, right? It's an angle. So there are more than one possibility. He could have hit that bottom step the way that Dr. La Posada mentioned, where the top of the head hits that step, then kind of moves up, and then the bottom also hits the floor in this case. Or he could have hit this ridge and scraped it, right? Got the cut and the scrape, and then kept going and actually crushed the base of his skull on the floor of the fireplace part, right? Just below that ledge. Do you see what I mean here? Because let's say he hits this top little lip, and then if he kept going, that would be the scrape to the top part. Remember how she said he kept going and that was the top part of the scrape, and then ultimately would have hit the base of his skull on this base of the fireplace, right? Where the fire goes inside. That's the base. And one more thing on this topic before we move on. If this fire was going or there were fire tools in that area that could have been part of what left some of the strange little marks when he actually landed on the base of the fireplace. I mean, that certainly would have been immediately lethal. All right, now that we have, okay, so let's take a moment. Let me pause this, remove that, and we can bring it back. So let's take a moment to think about this. So, like I said, what led me to the fireplace was really all of this odd stuff that you've been looking at in these videos about the family room, right? So the whole thing with Julie led me to the family room, and because Karen believes at the very least that she saw him walk in, I said, all right, let me walk through this as a real possibility. And I do believe that he did walk into the house now, but it took me a long time to get there, right? For all the reasons that everybody else, struggles, because why the lying about the Jeep? What about the plow? What happened in the driveway? All those things are factors. But based on having spent an obscene amount of time in their testimonies and trying to piece it all together, and considering what Karen said, I do believe he walked into the house. Now, when you actually look, and I encourage you to do it, part of why I can't show you that scrape is because YouTube won't let me keep my video up. It'll just block it so that you can't see the video at all. So it's not even worth me trying. There are like rules about how you can show blood and stuff, but you don't really know if you're meeting their rules until you put the video up. And then by then it's like, I got to play guessing games with whether or not it will be allowed to play. So, but I encourage you to go take a look at the wound and definitely mess with the contrast. You will see, like she's saying, it's one of the things that drew my attention to the fireplace is that it's a ridged surface. It's all of these different like textures. It's just not even, right? It's not like an even scratch. And if you look really closely, you'll see that there are these kind of like different, not just patterns, but you really have to look at it. It looks, because how with these types of fireplaces, they're not level. They're different. They come out at slightly what I'm trying to say. I can't even figure out exactly what words to use to communicate this, but texture-wise, it's like different textures on the outside, because the whole point of a brick fireplace, in terms of the aesthetic, is that it doesn't look perfect and neat and clean. It kind of has that like New England, aesthetic, and it definitely would be lethal immediately if you hit your head on any part of that apparatus, right? I mean, you'd be dead instantaneously. So it's interesting. And if you look closely, study his head wound, let me know what you think, because it's definitely interesting. Like I said, it's interesting. And then we're going to look at the testimony in just a minute. So that's where we're headed with all this. Wait till you see this. Oy. At Elling 2034 sends $19.99. Thank you, Elling 2034. Thank goodness I found you, because you give me hope for justice, more confidence in my gut feeling, and improved self-esteem. Your skin may glow, but my heart love is too. My heart is too. Thank you so much. I so appreciate you. And I appreciate your support, and you just saying those kind things. Because it's devastating. Like I was saying, Elling, earlier today, just going through this again, it's like, holy crap, this is it's horrifying. The situation is horrifying. That's why I can't let it go. Like I want to let it go. I can't let it go, because I can't. I just cannot let it go. This man deserves justice. We cannot stop until we see it. And, kind of like Aiden said, if you put a gun to my head and said, did John O'Keefe die in that house at the hands of the people in the house? It wouldn't even be a second of delay. It would just be yes. Of course, definitely. What, are you kidding? I mean, right. So it's the details that are really for us to figure out. And that is where we are headed today. So the next part of this video is really getting into the nitty-gritty of exactly what could have happened here. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get to go through it with all of you guys. Jackie VZ13 is a member for 4 months. Thank you, Jackie, for being a member. Have we ever learned why the Bryans did not attend John's funeral, a fellow officer? No, of course not. I mean, even if they told us, would it be a satisfying reason? Right? But I don't think so. I don't think we ever heard a reason. I don't know if Jennifer did. I know that I know they all went to the wake. And that's actually not that strange, I guess. Some people do just go to like the wake and maybe don't go to the funeral. But because he was a fallen officer and the funeral was this big event, you would have thought that they certainly would have absolutely been there. So it is a little strange to be sure. Hi, Ricky B. Send $20 at dermatologist, yes, and mention Koenig trial. I tell Doc she must check out your YouTube. I spell your name and thought, oh my God, she won't remember it. We need alt names. Watched Melanie on Turtle Boy, Karen read footnotes, and don't see the defamation. Really? No. Yes, you do. It's the wait, what do you mean? Oh, you don't see the defamation. Do you? Yeah, sorry. I thought you were saying you couldn't find the videos. I was like, yes, you can. What are you talking about? Yes, of course. No, because I don't either, right? I don't think any of us see the defamation. Aiden's, their whole thing is this all started, this specific claims that they're making against Aiden and Karen is all about the phone communication between Karen and Aiden. And the idea that Karen knows that she did it. They're arguing that Karen knows she did it and then used Aiden to knowingly or otherwise, I guess, to put out false information about them, which ultimately brainwashed all of us and convinced us that they were guilty. And it's crazy because you're absolutely right. First of all, there's 90 charges in there. I don't know what they call those, but like 90 different claims. Probably half are just totally false. I mean, just not even remotely true. Like there's nothing true about them. And then the other half are like, for example, John O'Keefe was hit by a car. Well, okay, didn't we already go through this? Like, there's no evidence that John O'Keefe was hit by a car. You can't just say something and then will it to be true? No matter how many times, what is it that makes you think John O'Keefe was hit by a car? Oh, well, there's taillight pieces. Okay. Well, so, I mean, that's not evidence of a car accident. That's not evidence of John O'Keefe making contact with Karen Reed's car. That's evidence that somebody put plastic somewhere, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's how do you get the marks on John's arm, but not break a bone or have a bruise? Like, it's just the level of absurdity from the beginning. And like, that's the first thing out the gate in this claim is that John died of a car accident. Well, nobody said anything about John dying of a car accident. There's no car accident in the medical examiner's report, right? So there's no evidence anywhere of a car accident except for taillight pieces. That's the big evidence, right? That's it. And Jen McCabe saying that Karen said, I hit him. And I always figured that Karen may have said, like, could I have hit him? But, when you stop and think about it, we don't see evidence of them standing around the taillight. We don't actually see that because that video just magically disappeared. Right? So, and it's pretty convenient how certain video that should be there just magically disappears. Or how about Melanie mentioned this, and I hadn't thought about this, but I always thought it was weird that Karen Reed's location data, like where is Karen's location data? Oh, well, the Commonwealth had her phone. Could they have just deleted her location data? Sure. I'm sure they could. Why not? And would I put it past these people? Because when I look at some of the video stuff that Aussie's uncovered, it's unbelievable. It's so unbelievable. You know, how are these people going to get away with any of this? I really hope. It's just so infuriating that they thought they could and that they were willing to try. But it speaks to their hubris, and that really is what is underlying the claim. The lawsuit is coming from the same place as the charges that came for Karen to begin with, from the same place and the same people that ultimately were willing to edit, cut and paste video, completely go outside of the rules, create inverted videos and try to pass them off as, just the way it was in a court, not only in a court case, but in a murder trial. It's just unbelievable. This case is too much. It's so infuriating. So yeah, I could just get outraged so fast. It's crazy. Pimabo sends $2. Why male feet? Girls wear Converse and look at jeans. Yeah, I have no reason to think that they're male except for the jeans itself. So the reason why what I was looking at was like the pant leg, but I was kind of messing around thinking that I was kind of just joking around that it was Brian Jr. I have no idea if that's Brian Jr. or not. And I learned a few days ago from Aiden that he's 6'6". I did not know that. I had no idea that Brian Albert Jr. was 6'6", because you can't tell. Like when you look at the witness stand, I mean, now that I know that, I can see that he's much bigger than everybody else. But that is like 6'6". He's enormous. Like he's the guy that stands out wherever he goes. Think about how tall 6'6" is. Great person to have with you at a concert. Otherwise, no wonder why he doesn't like to go out, because everywhere he goes, people are staring at him, right? Especially now, poor guy. So no, they probably, truthfully, that probably wasn't Brian Albert Jr. because he's so big. Those shoes look like they could be anybody's feet, right? Certainly not a guy who's 6'6". And yes, and as PCM 6482 points out, those feet do not belong to a 6'6" guy. And who is the gal who is not Sarah or Julie? Yeah, I mean, remember there were those 4 other girls at the house, and I also asked Turtle Boy this. I always kind of wondered, like, why are they just considered like not there? You know what I mean? And Aiden said that Karen's attorneys believed that they weren't at the house. So I'm okay. Well, if they believe it, then I'll believe it too. I was just curious why we are so sure that they weren't there also, right? That's all. I just wondered because, well, how do we know? We don't know. They could have been there for all I know. Those 4 girls. I'm willing to believe that they weren't there simply based on the testimony, but I like to be sure. So I was curious whether Aiden knew that, because he had spoken to somebody or not. Mommy12564 sends $9.99. Wow, I missed the start of your live because I was fixated on the nooner with Vince. Thanks for all you do, Sam. Well, thanks, Mommy. I appreciate it. It's a lot of work, man. This case in particular, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, this case. It's insanity. It's not nonstop insanity. Hi, Songbits Laura. Songbits Laura, you're like old school. We go like way back. Sends $3. Jackson needs to get a mold with clay of that brick. Yeah, that's what we need, actually. We need a mold of clay with that brick. I guess for me, that fireplace seems so obvious when if you listen really closely to Dr. La Posada. That's why I included her in this video, because if you listen carefully to her description, both of what could have made that mark, but also how serious of a desperate head injury this was. Like, I don't want to get into the details, but he his skull was essentially shattered. So it's just so silly that Hank Brennan tries to make the case that he could have been saved. There's just no way he was going to be dead very, very quickly. So sad. It's so sad. But when you look at that fireplace, my point is, you look at that fireplace. Yeah, certainly. If you hit your head on that fireplace, you are going to die for sure. And again, take a look at the back of his head injury. You look at that little 2-inch ridge that's, that kind of jumps out at the tip of that fireplace. He could have hit his head where the tear is. He could have hit it on the edge of that and then continued to scrape right down that first line of bricks, and then ultimately fell really hard on the bottom, and then some of the pattern could have gotten on him that way. So it's just a theory like any, right? I mean, could have also been on the bottom part. I mean, either are possible, but it's just interesting. Very, very interesting. At Kate from Rhode Island sends $4.99. You got it right on, Sam. Look at the colors. That would drive me crazy with OCD. The white sanded stone is where the blood was. Oh, love you and everything you do. Well, thanks, Kate from Rhode Island. Well, wait till you hear this, Kate, because you're gonna see more evidence of this. It's because what led me to this room and that fireplace is their testimony. That's how I got here. And wait till you see, it's crazy. So let's go back. Let me get to you. Oh, yay. Holly Johnson's been a member for 4 months. Thank you, Holly, for being a supporter. Thank you for going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. You're welcome. I don't know how else to do it. So this is what it is, right? All right, let's get back to it. Part 2, next. Family room in our head as a possible place where they could have been and where John O'Keefe could have walked into. Let's go into these testimonies with a different ear to see whether we get any indications from anyone else that they may have been in the family room also.
So everybody was in the kitchen, and then we have a connecting dining room, but it's opened. It's only, a difference of 5 feet. And then we have the family room den that's adjacent to the kitchen.
Wait a second. What was the question that he was answering here?
And where within your house was everybody else sort of situated?
Where was everybody situated? That's the question. And what did he say again?
So everybody was in the kitchen, and then we have a connecting dining room, but it's opened. It's only, a difference of 5 feet. And then we have the family room den that's adjacent to the kitchen.
Now, because we know the layout of this house, we know that technically he is telling us the truth. However, we also know that there's deception here because he started with the word so. So, if we're going according to his baseline, something about what he's saying here is deceptive for him. Importantly, he's not being asked about the layout of the home here. He's being asked, where was everybody situated around the house? So these are the places where everybody was situated throughout the house. And as you know, either the first thing in a list or the last thing is the most important.
We were in that room. There's a room right next to the kitchen with the doorway that you can walk through. I was seated at the table, but you could walk through the doorway. I know Julie Nagel went into that room because she was looking out the door. I know Julie Nagel went into that room because she was looking out the door.
I went out through the front door.
Do you remember what door your sister came out of? She came out of the side door?
I went out through the front door.
I know Julie Nagel went into that room because she was looking out the door. It's right there.
Oh my God.
Right next to us.
At any point in
Wow.
time over the
And Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were in the, I guess you'd call it the TV room area, just standing and talking.
So we're going to watch this part from Jennifer McCabe in slow motion. I want you to watch her eyes during this. Only the last part when she says Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were just standing and talking.
Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were in the, I guess you'd call it the TV room area, just standing and talking.
Now, interesting, Jen's eyes do actually go to the right place, at least for part of this last piece of the statement that she's making about where everybody was when she walks in the house. So it is very, very possible that Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were in the family room standing and talking. But what makes this deceptive, well, it's got a just in there. So in her mind, this is important because she wants us to know that they're not doing anything nefarious. They're just standing there and talking, which is a common way that people who are trying to hide something, that's why they throw just in there. Not, of course, consciously, but subconsciously. So it's a very defensive position, right? I just came in and found her. I don't know, officer, how my wife ended up shot in the basement. I just walked in. I just got here. So what makes this problematic is, first, when she says, I guess you'd call it, I don't know if this is a tactic to try to buy time, but that's my guess, because Jennifer McCabe has been in this house, hundreds of times? I mean, I don't even know what that number would be, but this is her sister's house. It's a close family. Brian Albert has lived in this house with his parents and his brothers. How many years is that? She knows what they call this room better than anybody. So to me, this has to be a tactic to buy time to figure out what to say here about the fact that Brian Albert and Brian Higgins are standing and talking. So the fact that she's reaching into her memory to try to say something makes it stand out to me. And that's why I am pointing it out to you.
Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were, there's like a...
So if we're eye tracking here, you'll note we have down and to the left.
Room right off of the kitchen, like a TV room. And
then we have up to the left, which is visual construction.
And they were in there just talking.
Then you have eye shielding here, notably on the just
talking. I think Nicole.
And then you have a second where she's looking up to grab something from memory. Wait, time out. While I was going through the editing process, I think I discovered what it was that Jen was looking to pull from her memory here.
Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were, there's like a room right off of the kitchen, like a TV room, and they were in there just talking. I think Nicole had put up some new pictures, so.
And then you have a second where she's looking up to grab something from memory.
Had put up some new pictures, so, or maybe the sun and the Marines.
And then completely eye shields when she gets to the part about looking at the sun and the Marines. I just have to point out, how funny is that? They do have a picture of, I think it's the sun and the Marines, could be Brian Sr., but I think it's hilarious that there is a photo of the sun and the Marines there, and it makes perfect sense because, I was kind of kidding, but not really, because if there really is a picture of the sun in the Marines in that room on the wall, then they all have the opportunity to pull that into their brain when they are talking about Brian Higgins and Brian Albert being in that room looking at pictures, right? So it's helpful to them to be able to have that in their brain if they are trying to rehearse testimony and figure out, all right, what are we going to say? Oh, we'll say that we were just looking at the pictures of, whoever. But it is curious that Nicole says pictures of Brian Sr. when he was a Marine. So that's interesting. I just thought it was a funny catch that that's actually in there in the background. Just ironic because of how much they talk about it throughout their testimonies. Recognizing that it's total fabrication. And she doesn't want to see Alan Jackson's reaction to her telling this really shoddy version of this story, obviously rehearsed, which he actually does not call her on at all.
You might have been looking at a picture.
So there's a wall, but there's a doorway. So there's really no barrier to go from the kitchen dining room into the family room.
Well, that's an interesting thing to say.
There's really no barrier to go from the kitchen dining room into the family room.
Because I do feel like this wall here counts as a barrier between the kitchen and the family room. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a construction worker. Maybe if you're a professional, you could help clarify this for me, but I do feel like that's a bit of a barrier.
So if somebody's standing in the family room and somebody's standing in the kitchen dining area, they can sort of see each other?
Yes.
Well, to the right, there's like the family room.
And is there anything as far as a wall? Can you see into the family room?
You can. It's like an opening. Yeah, it's not completely open, but there's an opening.
So if someone was standing in the family room and you were standing in the kitchen, you could see them, converse with them, that kind of thing.
Could you, though? Now, I'm not so sure that's true, Nicole, is it?
Someone was standing in the family room and you were standing in the kitchen, you could see them, converse with them, that kind of thing.
Yes.
It took me a second to realize why they would be lying about this. Like, why do they want us to believe that it would be completely open? Because they keep making this point over and over again. Caitlin makes this point, and maybe even Brian Jr. And of course, when you think about it, it worked. It actually worked really well, because the point they're trying to make is, well, if John O'Keefe had walked in the house, everyone would have seen it. And obviously, the innocent witnesses like Julie Nagel and Sarah Levinson, they didn't see anything because they're innocent snowflakes. So because they didn't see anything, it couldn't have happened. This very point is what actually worked. I mean, in a way, it is why I don't think Karen's lawyers were focused as much on the deception in all of their testimonies. And by that time, remember, they've already got their plan. They're probably not going to throw their plan away to make room for all of the discrepancies in what they're saying during the trial. You would have had to have time to catch all this, and we all have. So to be fair to them, you're probably not going to catch the Sun and the Marines discrepancies in real time. And even if you do, is it worth throwing out your whole game plan? Probably not. But it's interesting because this worked. It actually worked. The point that they were trying to make, which is that everybody would have seen John come in, and obviously everybody didn't. The only problem with this, though, is that it kind of backfires, right? Because what if everybody did?
Julie Nagel, did you know her when you walked in the house that night?
I had met her a few times.
Okay, you got to listen very carefully here. The question is, did you know her? That's a yes or no question. She does not answer the question. She evades it and gives us a roundabout answer. I had met her a few times. Now ask yourself another important question. Why does it matter how well Jen McCabe knows or does not know Julie Nagel?
Had you spent time with her? Were you friends with her?
No, I just had met her a few times, and she had watched my dog for me when my nephew couldn't.
When you would go away, would your nephew be responsible to watch your dog?
Yes.
Did you understand that Julie Nagel had watched your dog a couple of times?
Yes.
Have you ever socialized with her before that night?
No, I may have seen her at a graduation party, but never beyond that.
You know, we say these things all the time. Like, you hear me talk about never is always a problem. And specifically, when somebody is using the term never in place of the word no, that is deception. So let's think about this logically. Right. So why is she lying about how well she knows Julie? Because let's think about it, right? This is a close family. Everybody makes it clear that Julie is closer to Brian Jr. than Sarah. Now, Sarah went to the junior prom with Brian Jr., but Julie is identified as the closer friend to Brian Jr. They've been friends for at least a decade, probably longer, right? Because they're gonna underestimate their amount of time they've been friends because they don't want to stress how that they ride hard together because, you know, again, they're trying to minimize as much as they can the relationships with Sarah and Julie because they want to let everybody know that, of course, these two innocent snowflakes would never lie for us, right? So she's going out of her way to try to put distance between her and Julie. And the reality is, do we really believe, with everything you know about this family, that she's only ever seen Julie once at a graduation party? Like, the idea is asinine. Of course, that's not true. Like, this is a group that goes to the bar and parties for their son's birthday without him. They definitely know Julie Nagel. Even Brian Sr. admits that he knows Julie Nagel. So why is Jen nevering on Julie? It's bizarre. It's bizarre. It's a bizarre place to be deceptive because it doesn't matter. Why does this matter, right? Who cares? Who cares if you're friendly with Julie or not, or if you knew her, if she watched your dog? None of us care, except unless they care. Family is super close. We know that Brian Jr. has been friends with Julie Nagel since early high school. And we know that he's closer to Julie than he is to Sarah because even Brian Albert Sr. lets it be known that he knows Julie. So here, Jen wants us to believe that she's only maybe seen her around a few times, basically. And of course, that's just clearly not something that we can believe. Like, these are people who go to the bar to celebrate their son's birthday when he's not there. So clearly, everyone likes to drink, find reasons to socialize, and Julie is like a hang-arounder. So there's no doubt that Jen McCabe knows Julie Nagel. It's not even a question. What we don't know, however, is why it would be this important to lie about it, particularly for Jen. Why is it so important to lie about her relationship with Julie Nagel?
Were you friends with her at that point?
No.
Friendly enough that you watched your dogs?
Yes, through my nephew. He just said my friend's going to do it, and I trusted his judgment.
How would you describe sort of the mood or the demeanor of the group in the house when you got here?
Everybody was hanging out. I know Julie was excited. We just showed up. I know Julie was excited. We just showed up.
So apparently, according to Matt, Julie knows the McCabes enough to be excited when they showed up.
So,
like, did Matt and Jen not have any conversation before they testified? You know, that part has always been a head scratcher. Like, did you guys not discuss this at all, or you just got nervous? Like, what happened here?
A little bit before she went out to talk to Ryan.
yes, he did text me saying that he was outside.
Yes, her brother had come to pick her up. And so she was going to go tell him, try to get him to come in. And so she was going to go tell him, try to get him to come in.
These people are an absolute disgrace. I just have to say it. Hours of staring at them is definitely weighing on me now. So here, Jen McCabe starts to say she was going to go tell her brother that she's staying. And then she realizes that she's supposed to say, oh, try to get him to come in, because she has to make it seem like there's nothing going on in the house to hide. So, of course, we want Ryan to come in the house. Of course. If they weren't so goddamn transparent, maybe this would be more enjoyable. Because now it's just pissing me off. That's where I'm at. Like, I need a break from these people. Now, for anyone who might be thinking, well, but they just want to stress that there was nothing bad going on in the house. That's not anything that makes them guilty of something. Well, the problem is when people are innocent and have not done anything wrong and have nothing to hide, they don't plant evidence with their testimony. They simply give you the answers to the questions that are being asked. Yeah, okay. Moving on.
And upon receiving that text, where did you go?
I went out through the front door.
She came out of the side door,
I went out through the front door.
which is to the left of the garage.
Did you watch her?
Yes.
Where did she walk? From where to where?
She walked out of that door down the driveway towards us.
I know Julie Nagel went into that room because she was looking out the door.
Wait a minute. Let's hear that again.
I know Julie Nagel went into that room because she was looking out the door.
You were asked, do we know what time the brother came? Meaning Ryan Nagel.
Okay. Correct.
And the question from Mr. Lally was, that was from a grand juror, the question from Mr. Lally was, if you know, correct?
Correct.
And your answer was, I believe he was out front at 12:23. Is that right?
Correct.
And the reason you could be so precise with that time, Ms. McCabe, is because you had asked Julie Nagel to give you her text messages with Ryan for that night, and you had refreshed your recollection about the time, correct?
Correct.
All right. And you've also testified that as soon as you saw Ms. Reed's SUV, you texted John. Is that right?
Correct.
Here, exclamation point, question mark. That was the first text, right?
Correct.
But your text to John was at 12:27. You recall that?
Yes.
That's 4 minutes after you know Ryan Nagel arrived at the scene, correct?
Correct.
Since Karen Reed arrived before Ryan Nagel,
You can't even believe this shit. You can't even believe it. Watch Jen McCabe's eyes.
Since Karen Reed arrived before Ryan Nagel, she and John had to have been there 4 to 5 minutes before you ever saw her SUV. Correct?
Objection.
I'll let him have it. Is that right?
Ryan Nagel texted his sister at 12:23 here. And then he texted again that he was going to leave.
What? Wait, what did she just say? Okay, so this is super, super, super important. This is going to probably be the topic for my last installment on this, because this right here is really important. It's really, really important. And it's ironic that Jen in her timeline adventures is what ultimately makes her very sure of this timeline. So, just to reiterate, the first text that Julie gets from her brother is at 12:23. He says here. Now, what does that mean? Because obviously we know that Karen's Lexus is in front of 34 Fairview before Julie's brother. Okay, so it's not long before, maybe 30 seconds. That's probably the max, but it's not long before, but it is before because they're behind her the whole way. And then they pull away and Karen is still there, right? So we know though that he texts her here at 12:23. Could he have texted her before they're actually in front of the house? Yes, we don't know. But what we do know and what we did hear from Jen, and I don't remember hearing this anywhere else. So if you guys know somewhere else to find this, definitely let me know. This is the only time I've ever heard in testimony somebody say this, that her brother was waiting and almost left. He was about to leave because, Julie wasn't coming out of the house. So keep that in mind. Put a pin in that. It's so very important. And we don't know what time that was because she didn't give it to us, right? If I kind of wish that Alan Jackson hadn't stopped her there because she starts talking. And then one of the things that you learn about Jennifer McCabe is you want her talking as much as possible. Like getting Jen to just start blabbing is like the best thing for you in terms of information because she kind of can't help herself. She starts giving up stuff. And I've always felt, going way back to trial 1, I've always felt that Jen gives up a lot, that she's always like, she gives a lot away. And if you're listening very carefully, you probably can suss it out. You can probably pick apart, okay, this could be true. This isn't, because she does do a lot of talking and she wants to defend herself so badly. It's interesting. So this is important. We're going to come back to it, but really put a pin in this. It's huge.
Ryan Nagel texted his sister at 12:23 here. And then he texted again that he was going to leave. Then Julie Nagel went outside
Mr.
and
McCabe, that's not my question.
Who, if anyone, did you speak to about the fact that your brother was outside of the house?
Yeah, I just mentioned saying my brother's outside. I do remember someone or a few,
I want to hear the answer first.
just a few people saying, "Oh, just have your brother come in." So I went outside, and it was my brother in the passenger seat, his friend Ricky, and then his ex-girlfriend Heather. I asked them if they wanted to come in. They said no.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. Who, if anyone, did you speak to about the fact that your brother was outside of the house?
Yeah, I just mentioned saying my brother's outside. I do remember someone or a few.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Oh, there's so much wrong here. Okay, so first, Adam Lally asks, who, if anyone, did you speak to about the fact that your brother was outside the house? So she says, yeah, I just mentioned, skips entirely over who she mentioned this to on purpose. Yeah, I just mentioned, doesn't tell us who she mentioned it to, and then says, saying my brother's outside. So she does not answer the question. Okay, she does not say who, because he's asking, who did you speak to? She is not telling us who. But what she remembers is what she wants us to know. So now she takes it upon herself to interject the answer, the rehearsed answer, the thing, the piece of information she wants us to have that she thinks is important. So first, the language itself. Let's start there. Yeah, so it's not important. What I'm saying is not important. I mean, it's just, right? So she's trying to minimize this part of her testimony. She's trying to minimize the fact that she mentioned saying my brother's outside. She doesn't want to tell us who she said it to. Note, she's being incredibly generic. Then she kind of changes gears and she says, I do remember someone, because she says, I do remember someone, we know this is deception because you're a witness in a murder trial. You're being brought in to tell us what you remember. So now we know what she is saying is fabricated. And then she's cut off. Yannetti objects. The judge overrules. So she keeps going. Then she says, just a few people saying, oh, just have your brother come in. But because we have 3 justs in this statement, we know she wants to make it seem like this isn't important. It's not important that I tell you this. However, because Lally asked, who, if anyone, did you speak to about the fact your brother was outside the house? And she goes off on a completely different tangent. We know it's critical information for her. She thinks this is her cue to tell us something completely different. This is information that is extra that she absolutely wants us to have. So she does not even hear the question correctly. She overrides the question to give us information that she wants us to have. Oh, a few people inside the house. Note she's completely generic about who. Oh, just have your brother come in. So what she wants us to know or to hear is that somebody, a few people in the house just said, have your brother come inside. So Julie Nagel wants to make sure that we hear this, but that's not all.
Just a few people saying, oh, just have your brother come in. So I went outside, and it was my brother in the passenger seat, his friend Ricky, and then his ex-girlfriend Heather. I asked them if they wanted to come in. They said no.
Note the way she says this, like she's very dismissive, like, oh, this is no big deal. We hear exactly the same tone when she's talking about Brian Jr.'s dad going up to get the dog. Like, oh, just no big deal. Yeah, I mean, he just went up and brought the dog down and it was no big deal. It's so forced. It's so fake. It's so obviously hiding something. But the common denominator between the beginning, how she starts this answer, which is, oh, I just remember a few people inside said, oh, invite your brother in. The common denominator between that and that she keeps talking and just decides to tell us that she actually then went outside because, again, she forgets the question. But what's important to her is the through line between the first part and the second part of the answer she gives, which is, and then I went and I said, hey, do you guys want to come in? So that's the point of all of this, is to make sure that we hear that she invited her brother in the house and that the people in the house wanted her to do it. Now, why is this so important that Julie just takes it upon herself to go off on a tangent and make sure she gets this in?
From that period, from 12, 15 or so, from that period, about how long was it after that that you were at the house on Fairview?
So here's Julie's partner in crime, Sarah Levinson. And here she's being asked, how long were you at the house on Fairview? That's the question. How long were you at the house on Fairview? Let's see what she says.
I left between 1:30 and 2 a.m.
Whoa, this is big right here. She says, I left between 1:30 and 2 a.m. She opts to say, I left. When the verb leaving or left is the first one in a sentence, we know there's 2 reasons. There's somebody's late to go somewhere, or there's conflict. And important, she says I left, not we left. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's a lie. What I'm suggesting is that she does not feel connected to the people in the house that she's leaving with when she leaves. Because if she had, she would have said we when we left. Could it be that somehow whatever happens with John happens before Julie Nagel goes outside to tell her brother she's staying? Because there's conflict. That is what she just told us.
After she went out of the house and came back in, did the plan change about a ride home with her brother?
Yes.
What was the new plan?
The question is, did the plan change? Yes. What was the new plan? Now, all of us could answer this question for her. The new plan was to go home with Jen and Matt.
Jen McCabe and Matt McCabe would drive us home.
And look at that! Even Sarah knows the right answer because she gave it to us a year before. Now let's see how Sarah answers this question this time. Remember the question, what's the new plan?
So a little bit before she went out to talk to Ryan, we were talking, myself, her, and then Jen.
Oh, well, this is interesting. So, a little bit before. Huh. Well, gee, what could have happened a little bit before Julie went outside to talk to her brother?
Well, before when I went outside, I did notice another vehicle before my brother pulled up.
Wait a second. What did she just say?
So you had gone outside before your brother had, or Ricky had fully sort of parked the truck?
No, he was like fully outside already, and then I went out, and it was just Ricky's truck.
Okay. And so at some point later, there was another vehicle that came up?
Prior.
This is the kind of thing that is so easy to miss, to write off as strange but not important. That can wind up being utterly essential to putting the pieces together. So what Julie is saying here, she went out and didn't see Karen's Lexus when she went to talk to her brother, right? Why would Juliana believe wholeheartedly, because she believes this, she would never have argued with Lally, making sure to correct him twice, that she saw Karen's vehicle before her brother pulls up, okay? Underline. Before. She's sure of it. Before. How can Juliana be sure that Karen's Lexus was there before her brother? Remember the question, what's the new plan?
So a little bit before she went out to talk to Ryan, we were talking, myself, her, and then Jen.
We were talking, her and Julie were talking, and then either they bring this question about staying or going to Jen, or Jen interjects herself into the conversation. That's what the "and then" clearly states. So she's telling us that they either brought the question about what to do about Ryan to Jen, or Jen brought herself into the conversation, telling them, don't worry, we'll take you home.
We were talking, myself, her, and then Jen. We're talking about how we were leaving and Julie's older brother was going to come pick us up.
Okay, now we have another leaving. That's 2 leavings for Sarah Levinson. We have a left and then we have a leaving. So now, again, we have another indicator of conflict, of there being some kind of conflict. I'm not making this up, guys. This is in the language. Hand to God. This is not coming from me. This is what the linguistics is telling us. And if that's the case, then whatever happened with John happened before Julie Nagel goes outside to tell her brothers she's staying.
We were talking, myself, her, and then Jen, were talking about how we were leaving and Julie's older brother was going to come pick us up. And we were the only ones that weren't like related to the Alberts there. So like Brian's friends.
The question is, what's the new plan? So every ounce of what she is saying is extra information that she is planting, that she is being deliberate about giving us, and none of this is essential, important, or relevant, except that she wants us to know it. It has no utility in this story because the answer to the question is
Jen McCabe and Matt McCabe would drive us home.
the new plan is Jen and Matt are taking us home. That is how you would answer this as an honest person. She is going above and beyond, over the top, to tell us definitively that this is the reason why we decided to stay. This is the reason why Jen wanted us to stay. It had nothing to do with whatever happened to John O'Keefe. It was because we were the only ones of Brian's friends left at the party. And so she begged us to stay and said, "Oh, we'll take you home." So this is all bullshit. Every second of it. This is all fabricated. This is all nonsense. And it's all incredibly intentional. She is intentionally planting information she's seen staging. She's trying to make us look over here so that we don't look at what was really going on. I mean, this is outright deception. And I think this is actually criminal. I mean, I can't be sure. I'm not a lawyer. But this is her literally covering up a murder.
Ones that weren't like related to the Alberts there. So like Brian's friends left. So Jen was like, "Oh, like don't leave just yet," because like we were celebrating Brian's birthday.
Now you guys know that this kind of dialogue is as shady as it gets. But look at what she is saying. That weren't like reduction of commitment related to the Alberts there. So like reduction of commitment, Brian's friends, another left. So Jen was like another reduction of commitment. Oh, like another reduction of commitment. Don't leave, another left. Another one. Just yet, because like, another like, we were celebrating Brian's birthday. Watch her eyes while she's saying that they were celebrating Brian's birthday here. Watch her face. Watch her eye shielding, looking down. She can't even say, "'cause we were celebrating Brian's birthday," with a straight face. It's really, this is quite the performance, and I have to tell you, it's, this is pretty terribly distressing.
Did you want to stay?
Yeah, I didn't mind. Don't leave just yet because like we were celebrating Brian's birthday. don't leave just yet because, like, we were celebrating Brian's birthday.
Yeah, they were doing something like celebrating Brian's birthday. It's pretty sad. And then, of course, she's going to launch into this whole dialogue, which hopefully by now you know intuitively is just absolute horseshit. It should send off alarms in your head the second that you hear somebody doing this, particularly in a courtroom. Think about it. Is this how you would talk in a courtroom? Under oath, on a witness stand, in a murder trial? Is this the kind of bullshit that would be coming out of your mouth? Yeah. No, of course not.
If you want, myself and Matt can drive you home a little bit later. So we agreed to that.
Wait a minute. We agreed to that. We agreed to that. This is something you say when you're in a contractual relationship or you're agreeing to sign a contract or to a handshake on something. This is not how you would be thinking about your friend's aunt and uncle taking you home because you're not ready to leave the party. And that is a word that we use when we're trying to get distance from something. So this implies that Sarah wanted no part of this. We agreed to that, to staying. That's what the that is. The that is staying. And she's saying, we agreed to that. She's not saying we agreed with that. Oh, we wanted to stay and celebrate our friend Brian's birthday and dance. No, that's not what she said. We agreed to that implies somebody else was setting the terms and they agreed to them. Right. So let's take a pause here. That's right. So going through the testimony of Sarah, one thing you have to keep in mind, trial 2, there is no Julie. So the whole story about telling Ryan to come inside and making sure that the jury knows that, oh, the people in the house wanted Ryan to come inside, she wasn't there to tell that story. So it fell squarely on the shoulders of Sarah Levinson. And that is why we see this overperforming from Sarah. And the funny thing is, her baseline is so dramatically different from that. If you go back and you watch trial 1 and 2, to be fair to her, she holds her body in a frozen position, and the only thing that moves is her face. So you have to actually be watching her face in order to get any expression because she's so frozen. Like all she'll move is her face. She won't even answer in complete sentences throughout 75% of both of her testimonies. The second one, she was a little bit like looser, a little bit better practiced, obviously, because she had gone through it already once. But man, this is without a doubt a performance. Without a doubt. And if they're this desperate, if all of them are this desperate for us to hear that Julie went outside and said, come inside, and that the people in the house were the ones that, made sure to direct her, oh, tell them to come inside. It's so desperate. It's so forced. It's creepy. And it is definitive. I mean, this is consciousness of guilt by definition. That this is consciousness of guilt. There's only one reason to make sure we hear this over and over and over again. And that is to put it in all of our heads that there's nothing to hide. There's nothing nefarious going on in the house. John O'Keefe's dead body isn't in our house. No, of course not. Because innocent people, guys, don't do this shit. Believe it or not, they don't. And they definitely don't do it while they are testifying in front of the whole world in a murder trial. It's hard to stress, right? It's hard for me to communicate how distressing this is because it's just egregious bullshit. And it's so obvious and it's insulting when I watch her do it because I know people believe this nonsense. It's so infuriating. And we're not even like close, by the way. This isn't like done. Yeah, you can see, right? Like I don't know, I'm at here with these people. Like that's why I can only listen. Melanie's done at least 3 shows now, I think, and I'm so appreciative of her doing it. But I can only listen for like 4 or 5 minutes before I start to get really like angry because I'm sitting here going through all of this like no. You know, you guys, like the audacity on these people. And I get it. I understand why they're doing it. They almost didn't have a choice, right? Because they have to prove to their, friends, to the 200 people that showed up to donate and support them at their hotel party a few weeks back, they have to prove their innocence. And God damn it, they're innocent and they're being painted wrongfully as murderers, and it's so unjust. They have to back that up, right? But I don't know. I can't help but think this is not a good idea for them. It's not a good idea because soon as like there's a new DA in town or the police commissioner changes for the Boston PD, as soon as the politicians, the people that have protected them for so long, those people start to shift. Could be next week, could be a decade from now, but murder, there's no statute of limitations on murder. At Love from Tejas sends $9.99. Sam, love all you do. You talked about the J. Yep, I've asked someone who knows the case from the inside. They have opined that the J was caused post-mortem, but I don't know. Rabbit holes. Laugh out loud. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're talking about the J mark, right? Like what looks like the fish hook almost on the back of his head. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it could have come from wherever he was placed for a period of time. Definitely. Absolutely. And then we could, like you said, opine all day about where. That's why I was more focused on the scratches. And if you look closely, really do this, look closely at the scratches and the way they fan out and push up. They fan out and push up like the way that when you look at a brick fireplace, they're all different textures. Like they come at you at an uneven placement of the bricks. And you could almost see it fans out, right? Like it fans out, like almost like a circle, like a half circle. I don't know. Take a closer look. It's craziness. It's totally a rabbit hole, but it's craziness. These freaking people, man, they drive me nuts. At Holly Johnson. VD6LV sends $9.99. The McAlberts and Higgy are more likely to catch criminal charges than win a penny. God bless you. I hope so, man. I am so tired of this. It's so exhausting because when you see it so clear and it's like the more you look at it, it's like zooming in on a camera and just keep zooming in. But then when you get all the way in, it opens up and there's like a whole new life inside, right? It just keeps happening that way with these people. And it's crazy. It's endless, the amount of information that comes from them. An endless sea of information. It's absolutely wild. I can't even believe that like we're this far along and still uncovering information from their testimony. And one of the things I will tell you, one of the things that helps me be able to like unravel it is that I know it really well. Because I've been through it so many times and because I've been investigating this very small period of time for a while, I can remember, oh, you know who said that? Oh, Brian Albert Jr. said something about that. Let me go back and look there. Because I know who says what about what and when, I can go get things and it's gotten easier. Because if you're starting from zero, the level of overwhelm, when Aiden said in our, when he came on Monday, he mentioned that he was looking for an attorney and ideally it would be somebody who kind of knew the case or who had followed the Karen Reed cases. I mean, it's like, yeah, I don't know how you could possibly get caught up. As an attorney, you'd have to spend every waking moment around the clock trying to get caught up. It would be an impossible task. So he's absolutely right. You have to have somebody who knows what the hell is already going on at a baseline, right? At Ricky B sends $2. JOL wasn't it by a car, full stop. Can you even believe like we still have to go through this though? Like the fact that I'm still like, okay, Dr. La Posada, like it's crazy that we're still here. Like it's crazy. It drives me nuts. Hello, Mark. Mark sends $9.99. Sam, is it possible for someone to go to jail after this latest case for Karen? I was thinking maybe, but I'm not really certain. I don't know what you mean exactly. Of course. I mean, someone can go to jail at any time, but maybe I'm missing something. Sam, is it possible for someone to go to jail after this latest case for Karen? I was thinking maybe. I'm not sure what you mean, Mark. You have to clarify that. And if somebody in the chat knows what he means, let me know. I mean, when it comes to the death of John O'Keefe, somebody could go to jail forever because it's murder, right? And it was Aiden that got me thinking about this because I've never, I don't know how I missed this, by the way, like how much true crime stuff do all of us watch and have in our lives? But I was thinking about, I don't know what the charges would be, but let's say that let's just say for the sake of this discussion, that everybody in the house knows what happened and that they knew what happened that night. And that night made a group decision not to get help and not to tell anybody what happened, to just put him outside, right? If they all make that decision, do they all become guilty of murder? So I guess the real answer probably is it depends on who gets, a deal first or something like that. But I just wonder, is everybody held responsible, even if you had nothing to do with the actual event because you knew about it and never said anything? I don't know. I don't know. At Bob is my name, sends $1.99. Amazing theory, Sam. What were the people doing? The people. The people. Oh, yay. Got a new member at Glory Goods 6717. Welcome, Glory Goods. We are super happy to have you here as a new member. Suzette. Hello, Suzette. Only prob I have with the fireplace. Why dig up the basement? Well, they had to put him somewhere also. So two things. There's two things. He definitely didn't stay there. So they wouldn't have just left him, bleeding out in their living room. So wherever he would, and they wouldn't have wanted to have brought him outside because outside you're going to be exposed to the world outside, right? Anybody else's eyes. So he would have had to have gone into the basement is my guess, because where else are you going to take, right? And that's my guess. My guess is that he would have had to have gone into the basement. That's my guess. So it's very possible that he gets in the injury, he dies there in the family room, and then they bring him somewhere else because he's can't just leave him there. It's a wild So there's a lot of things we have to go through. I mean, we still have a lot of working this out, Suzette, because here's what I know. The language from Sarah is very clear that she's experiencing a conflict. Like, it is clear. I mean, I don't know how, I didn't even count, but I think it's like six times she uses left or leaving about this at that moment when Ryan is outside. Now think about this. Julie leaves him out there. Like, she doesn't respond. She doesn't text, oh, coming. Maybe she doesn't see it right away, but she leaves her brother hanging. And it sounds like her and Julie and Sarah are trying to work it out themselves and then bring it to Jen, or Jen, sees that they're trying to figure out what to do about Ryan. Now, certainly, it starts to make sense why Jen then would have been staring at Karen's car. Now, I don't think she was staring out the door, because she slips and says window a couple of times. So I actually think she's looking at Karen's Lexus through the window, not the front door, because I don't think the front storm door is like open. It just doesn't make any sense. So it certainly makes sense, though, that if this all happens, so you guys are going to laugh at me, but this is how, talk about the details. I spent some time, as soon as I finished this video today, I went into YouTube and was trying to find like bar fights to see how quickly can a fight break out. Like, how fast does this actually happen in real time, so that we could see it, like get the feel of how quickly, a fight can start. Because I think that is what happened, right? I mean, just based on John's injuries, people have said, oh, the dog just jumped up. No, to me, that's not what happened, because the only places where John has bruises is on the backs of his hands, like punching injuries, right? Either punching or blocking, I guess. He also has the scratch on the left side of his nose, the eye over his right eye, right? Which to me, could definitely have been from a punch. So to me, he looks like he got into, a little bit of a fight and then lost the fight, obviously, not to be a jerk, but, that's to me what happened. I also think that, so I was thinking about this. All right, so let's think about this. Seriously think about this. Two things, something else I need to say. Brian Higgins, can't even make this stuff up. The other day, Brian Higgins, so we were watching Brian Higgins a week ago, and I came upon his testimony a little bit later. At the end of what we saw last week, Brian Higgins tells us that Lally asks, did you speak to John and or Karen at any time after you left the waterfall? And he says, I think I shot a text to John, where are you? That's what he says. And Lally doesn't correct him. Lally just blows past it, of course. And then he asks, and then he says, but I never saw John or Karen again. While he's looking at Karen. But he wants us to believe that that text he sent to John was, where are you? But it wasn't, was it? It was, you coming here. And clearly, Brian Higgins thinks this is important enough to lie about it. And if these people didn't lie about shit like this, again, it wouldn't look so goddamn guilty. But there is a difference between where are you and you coming here, 3 question marks, right? You coming here implies, like, I've got something I want to say to you. You coming here or what? That's what it says. You coming here? And because these men had not spoke via text message since the day after the Patriots game, and because Brian clearly felt guilty about the fact that he was communicating with Karen, he stopped interacting with John via text. And remember, John was a little sus about Brian Higgins because he saw them on film walking out of the house on his Ring camera. Remember, John's like, what are you hooking up with him? So it is very possible that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert are together. Because remember also something else, I'm just thinking out loud now. Sarah Levinson thinks that the two guys were at the funeral. She doesn't know that Higgins and Albert were at the waterfall. She thinks that they are still coming back from the funeral. And the reason why she might think that is because they're together in the family room. So she may not have seen them all walk in. She assumes that those two, because they're alone together, came in separately from the rest of the group, Nicole, Caitlin, and somebody else. Am I forgetting somebody? Just Nicole and Caitlin? I guess it's just Nicole and Caitlin. So they could have come in even, because Nicole says she used the front door. I kind of believe that on that one day. I believed her. So it's possible that that Brian Albert uses the family room door, she uses the front door. Sarah thinks that they came separately because of that. And you have Brian Higgins and Brian Albert alone, and Brian Higgins wants Brian Albert alone because he wants to talk to him about what's going on with John. Obviously, he's got John on his mind because he texts him and says, "You coming here?" Question mark. And knowing what we know now about Brian Higgins, I don't see him doing that unless, he didn't do that as like a show. I mean, he sent that genuinely wanting to know if they were coming, right? I mean, we see how eager they are to get John and Karen to the house. I mean, Brian is motioning to both of them, like, come on, let's go. Both of them. John, when he turns around, and then Karen, when she turns around. She's like really involved in a conversation with, I don't think it's Jen at that point. I think it's the Greek, what's her name? Kolakithis. I think that's who she's talking to at that point. But anyway, my point is that, Brian Higgins evidencing consciousness of guilt by lying about that text message, because there is a difference between you coming here and like, where are you? Big difference to me. These fucking people, man. So I do think, Suzette, that it could be both. I think it could be both. I think that it could have happened there, and then he could have gone, they could have brought him into the basement. At Your Dad's Favorite Mom. Hi, At Your Dad's Favorite Mom. Sends $4.99. Chloe could have come in the family room door. Yep, absolutely. Saw them roughhousing, jumped on John, protecting Brian, and he fell back onto the fireplace. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they could have been fighting, and the dog jumps on him, and he falls and hits his head. And that would make sense because clearly, even with this lawsuit, right? So if you think about this, and Kylie, to your question earlier, or to what you were saying earlier, absolutely, if you think about who the lawsuit is, I mean, clearly Brian Albert and Brian Higgins are very united, right? Like, even if they are not hanging out all the time, because it does seem like Brian Higgins distanced himself from everybody for a while. Even if they are not friends anymore, they certainly appear to be bonded around this. That's what Brian Higgins' testimony indicates. And so it's possible that they both feel culpable. And certainly, if it's the dog, if it's Brian Higgins that's responsible for starting the fight, and the dog responsible for John losing his life, then that makes sense why Brian Albert and Brian Higgins would both feel culpable and connected, are not going to turn on each other because there's an equal amount of liability. Because my understanding also is that in the state of Massachusetts, if your dog hurts somebody, you are very liable for it. If your dog kills somebody, I mean, I guess, right? But this wouldn't just be, it's not like, an accident. So no, it is an accident, but there was a fight. So it's a little different too. It's not like, John's walking down the street and the dog jumps the fence and grabs him. So that would also be irresponsible, but a different type of situation. In this case, the dog is responding to the aggression that's happening in the house. Because this is happening in the house. This dog, this is its home. This isn't even just like his owner. This is their house, So if there's a fight breaking out and it could hurt Brian Albert or the kids in that house, that dog is going to, fight. And it's going to fight to the death. I mean, those dogs, they don't mess around. You guys know that. If John was holding the glass when Chloe jumped on him, he could have whacked himself in the face. Yes. 100%. Yep. Yeah. Like whiplash almost, right? Like that kind of a thing. Sure. Yeah. I always thought that the glass came from a fight, a fight somehow. Could have even been somebody else's glass. Could have been his, could have been somebody else's. It would have been nice if, I was going to say if you tested that glass, but that glass never made it anywhere, right? Because that glass Karen picked out of John's face, tragically. But yeah, certainly he could have whacked himself in the head, or could have, everybody could have been holding, a drink. It's craziness. But definitely, yeah, 100%. 100%. Ay. Yay, welcome at Crafting with the Birds. Welcome to the club. Got a Bad Feeling says, if they're all telling the truth, why didn't they give their phones? Well, they're not, though. Not screenshots. I know. It's so stupid. Because think about it, right? Like, listen, if somebody even whispered murder in my direction and I had absolutely nothing to do with it, I'd be giving up every device. I'd be begging the police to do a full download. Look at everything, please. I didn't do this. What are you kidding? You know what I'm saying? It's so insane. It's the fact that we're even still having to have these conversations is really crazy. But it does dawn on me. And I think sometimes when you sit with stuff, it really does make more sense. You take a minute and you're like, oh, okay. And you think, because I do think that there's no police other than the feds, right? But you couldn't, if you lived in Canton, even if you saw what happened to John, you were literally watching the whole thing. Who are you calling to tell that to? You're not going to call the Boston PD. That's Commissioner Cox. You saw how he handled, Kelly Dever. So you're not calling the local police because that's Chief Berkowitz. And at this moment, I think Vince has him planting the taillight, which is as good a guess as anybody. And you can't call them. The Massachusetts State Police is Michael Morrissey and his goons. So even if you wanted help, you wanted to call somebody to tell the truth, who are you calling? You almost couldn't tell them. You couldn't trust those guys. You'd be better off not saying a word. So you'd almost have to go to the feds if you had information, because there's nowhere else to go. At Derek7062 sends $1.99. Thank you, Derek. And Aaron, welcome. Aaron Town, I forgot to mention that you're a new member. Welcome. On top, XX6382 sends $1.99. We excellent at this. Thank you. Well, thank you for saying that. It's, a lot of time with these people now. At this a while with these freaking people. I'm getting to my wit's end though. I'm getting to my wit's end. At Balancing Debits and Credits. Hi, Balancing Debits and Credits. Sends $5. Even if it was an accident at this point, the cover up is way worse. Oh, 100%. 100%. The cover up, the perjury. Just the egregious lying. It's the 911 call, which is makes me physically ill to think about. I try not to think about that as much as possible because it's so incriminating and terrible. Not only even just that, like, clearly somebody screwed with Jen McCabe's cell phone information. Videos have been tampered with. Like, the amount of effort that the Commonwealth put in to trying to incriminate Karen Read and failed. Think about that. They spent over easily almost $2 million trying to put Karen, with their singular goal, put Karen Read in prison, period. And they failed miserably. And they're still at this. It's crazy that we're still doing this shit. I mean, are we going to be doing this for the rest of our lives? I mean, it kind of starting to feel that way, right? Really, it's crazy. At Nana Banana, I love that. Nana Banana 4-U4T. Welcome, Nana Banana. I'll never forget your name ever. Nana Banana is like the best name. Welcome, welcome. Mark says, "Oh, good. Hopefully you're helping me with this. Can they be convicted? Oh, during a settlement trial? Yeah, I think so. Yes. I mean, so think of this is kind of what's going on with Aiden, right? So this is something that he was talking about, and he's like, I don't know what the hell is going to happen. And so because Turtle Boy has a criminal case, the witness intimidation case. And the same people in that case are then taking the civil lawsuit out against him. And so now, does that civil suit negate the validity of their witness testimony? Because now they have like a personal financial investment in the outcome of the criminal case. So there's a lot of really crazy twists and turns in all of this. But I think the answer is yes. I think you absolutely can be convicted of a criminal charge with any number of civil stuff pending and happening. The only person who can't be charged criminally with, murder or with the death of John O'Keefe is Karen Read at this moment. I mean, she's the only person that can't be charged with anything in connection to him. But, you got to feel for Karen. I mean, at this point, I guess she's used to it. I mean, she's been living with this for 4 years, but it can't be easy to always have these people that you're like fighting with, just constantly battling with these guys. It just can't be easy to be living with it all the time. At Ms. Kemp sends 199. Dan Markel murder. Yeah, I know, Ms. Kemp. I know. That's something that Aiden was saying. He used, Donna Adelson as a kind of an example. And I thought that was a really good example of, right. I mean, in that case, it's a little different. Is it though? Is Donna Adelson? I mean, yeah, because all they really had with Donna was her talking about the bump. And I think that's really ultimately what convicted her, right? It's not like they had Donna giving the money to the killers, because there was never any time where Donna was in a room with the hitmen. So 100%. They all got convicted. And the irony with that is like the person who probably is responsible really is still walking around. It's wild. Wild, wild. Hello, Twigs. It's shameful that we have to guess because no matter what happened, had the police processed the house, we would know what evidence was and wasn't there. I know. Even now, Twigs, like even today, if I lived in that house, seriously, like Vince and I have talked about this many times. Like, how can we get into that house? Can we go in with like a ton of luminol? I don't know what it would do. It's like, it wouldn't really do anything. We could just take pictures of it. It's not like we have any police to bring the information to, but at least we have it, at least we would know. Cause there could be evidence still. We wouldn't know because nobody's looking. It's the craziest part of all this, Twigs. Nobody sat Julie Nagel or Sarah Levinson in a room and said, tell us what the hell happened or else. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And then because of that, these people can kind of like walk around and be like, yeah, we're innocent. We're innocent. It's just crazy. It's so crazy. Derek says, do their lawyers actually believe? I know. You know what, Derek? I had the exact same thought today. First, I thought the answer is probably yes. The lawyers that the McAlberts got to prosecute the civil case, probably they do. Because listen, if I don't know anything about this, and my first exposure to this case is these people coming in, telling me that they're victims, showing me Aiden's, nefarious YouTube programs, right? Saying that Karen Reed did this and she, convinced Aiden, whatever, because I think there's plenty of evidence that Turtle Boy believes what he's saying. I mean, good luck trying to make the case that he doesn't believe that they're guilty of this. I mean, certainly, if you have eyes, you know that he believes it. Now, the argument would have to be that Karen is the only person on the planet who knows that she's responsible. I think that's their argument. So I thought about this too. I think the answer is yes, they probably do. I don't think as an attorney, you could take this case unless you believe them. I don't know how you could take it. It's too big. It's too much. There's too much to learn, too much to know. It's not even like your run of the mill, I don't know, like manslaughter or something. I don't know. I just feel like this case is so massive and there's so much information you'd have to try to sort through. So I think they have to believe them. Like, I think, the lawyer that the O'Keefe family has, what's that guy's name? I can always forget his name. The one that stood up and kept trying to say that the Karen Reed message she left, or the recording of her screaming at Aiden, that guy that tried to paint it in the absolutely wrong light. I think that guy believes that Karen is guilty, because I think you have to. I mean, he's taking this probably on a contingency. The only other reason to do it would be that the notoriety is going to propel you into celebrity. Like, if you're Alan Jackson, okay, one of the benefits of taking on this case is now, you're a big celebrity. So other people who are in trouble and have money can call you and say, hey, you're the guy I want, right? So for some of these people, I would think that the benefit of taking on this case pro bono or on contingency is the celebrity that could come with it. But you better make sure that you know what you're doing, because this isn't messing around, right? I mean, this is a big cluster of. Hello, Rudy sends $5. Whomever takes the immunity card or pleads to the lesser charge will buy the barn. Yep, the McAlberts should be ashamed. I know, scarlet letter their asses. I'm with you. I think they actually have been scarlet lettered. That's like the only solace I have right now. Now they only interact with each other, so it doesn't really, but I think that's their whole argument, like Brian Albert is on this. So the four people are intentional. You've got Jen McCabe. That one should be obvious, because Jen takes all kinds of hits from everybody, right? I mean, publicly, she's made to look bad. Aiden says terrible things about her. And she's just, like, she's an easy person to not like. So I think Jen makes sense to me that she'd be on the face of this lawsuit. Now, just having said that, Jen is also, the one like bullying people in town, threatening Kolakithis because she wasn't going to say what Jen wanted her to. I mean, so she's a bully in her own right. Colin is on this lawsuit because poor Colin, like, he's the one I have some sympathy for, because he's young. Not because of his actions, by the way, but because of the fact that he never really had a choice in any of this. Like, whatever happened, Colin was not making his own choices. He was being told by other people what to do. So for that reason. And obviously he's terribly tortured by this. I mean, every time I've seen Colin, other than, on the witness stand when he had on like the button down shirt, every time I've seen video, he's always got like a hoodie up, even in the middle of the summer, by the way, and like sweatpants. Like he always looks like he's hiding. And I can imagine being a young guy, 20 years old, young, 19, 20, like you're so young at that age. It's just too young. Your brain is not fully developed. You don't have the frontal cortex, the decision-making capacity to handle this. And so I'm sure he's not handling it well. So I think Colin is on this lawsuit because it gives him some power back and tries to help him to feel like he's going to get his reputation restored somehow. I get that. Brian Albert, I think he's the leader, so he has to be. Like, this is all his doing. All of this has always been all his. Like, he's behind all of this. He's the strategist. He's the guy telling everybody what to do. Like, he's the director of the play. That's Brian Albert, so he has to be on it. But I think the example that Brian Albert is going to hold in his head and publicly is going to be the woman at the mall. I think it was a woman. It may not have been, but I think it was a woman at the mall that was with the megaphone yelling like murder or whatever, So, and these are not like, and I've said this about Brian Higgins too, Brian Higgins, these guys don't like being seen as like the bad guy. Brian Higgins was a firefighter. Like, he wants to be seen like the good guy. That's what the firefighters are. Like I was saying to Vince on Monday, when you're an NYPD guy sometimes, or gal person, they complain that, when they show up, people get defensive and angry. But when the firefighters show up, everyone's like, yay, the firefighters are here. They're the heroes. And I really think that Brian Higgins is doing this because he hates being seen as a bad guy. Like, he wants that hero image back. That's my feeling about why these four are the four. But, you can't use force. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see how you win this. I don't see how you win this because John O'Keefe was not hit by a car. So how do you win? If you're in that house, how do you win this? You can't get around that. John O'Keefe was not hit by a car. And anybody that tries to pretend that that's true ends up like Aperture. Now, you saw Aperture. Aperture was paid $1 million or, $700,000, $750 in the end, I think. And you saw what Aperture was able to do. Aperture's job was to try to combat ARCA and find a way to make Karen Reed look guilty. And you saw how they did it. So that's what you're going to get from an expert accident reconstruction team who decides that they're going to side with the evil empire and try to make something happen that didn't. They're going to paint their arm blue and, fall into the side of a car. I don't know. Because that's what you're going to get. Because you can't make something happen that doesn't. That's the problem that they all have. You can't make something happen that didn't. I don't see how this goes well for them. I just don't. I think they're better off just absconding into obscurity or something. Twig says, listen to Nicole's testimony. I don't remember Nicole's testimony about the garage, but I absolutely will. I remember, the only thing I remember specifically is that Brian Sr. tells us that they don't use the garage because of storage or whatever, but I will absolutely do that, Twigs. You got it, 100%. Wait, what? True Crime sends $2. Can't wait for more discovery. Oh, me too. Yeah. Even just what Aiden has, right? Like, because he has text messages, he's got all the messages between Carrie and Jen. That is something that I would love to analyze, to get my hands on that, because I am certain what we will see, and I can't wait to see it. That's going to be a fun Those are going to be fun text exchanges for sure. Rudy says, remember that JOK is OCD? Yep, dirty shoes on. So he was in the process of taking them off. Could have been. Could have been. You know what, Rudy? I tend to think, based on what I saw of John right at the end of the bar, I tend to think that John was possibly the aggressor. Because, and I don't know that. That's just kind of a hunch. Now, obviously, we also have Ryan Higgins saying, you know, you come in here, 3 question marks. So it's not, you know, it's possible though. So, okay, let me paint the scenario. John walks in by himself. Okay, he's been drinking. It's the end of the night, right? He's already, like, I just thought about this right now. So the fact that John O'Keefe walks into the waterfall, and the first thing he does is he gives a big hug to Brian Higgins, right? First thing, he's like, hey, and then he gives him a big embrace. But then they don't talk the rest of the night. And they're near each other. Like, John is over there. He spends the majority of his time talking to Brian Albert. And then sometime it looks like talking to Chris, because Chris is on the other side of Brian Albert. Higgins is there, but he's not talking to him directly. But he is the first person that John acknowledges in the bar. And he does give him a very, very warm welcome. Now, sometimes, so think of it this way, like John has been already at C.F. McCarthy's for probably an hour and a half, right? I can't remember the exact time that he gets to C.F. McCarthy's, but he's been drinking for a couple of hours about. So by the time he gets into the waterfall, he's definitely got a good buzz on, and he's like, hey, you know, my boy, gives him a hug. And then they're doing shots, right? I think he does a couple of rounds of shots. Definitely is, you know, picking up the pace, drinking beer. I'm just wondering, is that very warm welcome, is that an overcompensation? Is that a message that he's trying to send to Brian Higgins? Hey, man, we're cool. Which might actually be another way of saying, like, we're not cool, right? And if you get enough, you know, booze in me, does that we're cool suddenly change to we're not cool? So it's just a thought I had. Now I'm talking out loud. My thought is, though, he walks into the house, and what if, like, Brian Higgins is like, hey, where's Karen? That might be all it takes. Like, he could just say, like, where's your girl? Because that's how Brian Higgins referenced her, I think, in some of the text messages before him and Karen were talking. I think he was like, your girl. So what if he simply walks in the house and Brian Higgins says, where's your girl? And he just hears it. Like he's being a dick. I mean, that right, like alone could, like, it's so small. I know it sounds so silly, but it's like enough of a spark that it could light a fire if there's already, right, like rubble there. It's already, if shit is already under the surface, like not cool, it's not impossible that it could have ignited very quickly. That is my current theory. That is my current theory. So let me get through a couple more and then we'll try to finish this or get through as much as we can. We have a new, member for 4 months, Cow Art Tahito, 2379. Love and appreciate all your hard work. And thank you so much for being a member for 4 months. I'm trying to figure out how do I say this. Cow Art Tahito. Cow Art Tahito, 2379. Thank you for being a member. Thank you for all your support. Oh my God. Cutest cat. I love your cat. I have two cats, and they are tabbies, and they are like serial killer maniacs, but I love them dearly, but they are like killers for sure. At Pandora's Lawsuit sends $5 Canadian. IMO, they would have used luminol to clean up. Oh, absolutely. Maybe what Higgins, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Of course they would have. Yeah, they would have absolutely would have used luminol to clean up. Yeah. Yep. Nope. I mean, that's, another really good point, right? Like they are professionals. And if you think about it, it all makes sense why this is, I mean, look, they're guilty. We see it. It's not even hidden, right? Like Brian Albert didn't come out of the house. Brian Albert's dog didn't bark, and he insults us when he tries to pretend like the dog was in the house that morning because he clearly wasn't. Clearly, there was no dog in that house. And it's insulting to our intelligence to try to pretend like there was. Nonetheless, he couldn't come outside because John O'Keefe was already dead. So there's no freaking way that Brian Albert was coming out of that house and pretending to find him. Because he was dead. That's, they didn't want to take the risk. What was he going to do? He's a first responder. How do I handle that? If I communicate or I express that he's dead to the other first responders when they show up, then I am making a statement about his life or death, and I'm the homeowner. Like he knew he couldn't. He just couldn't. He couldn't. It's like if you got picked up by the police, even though you didn't do anything wrong. In this case, this is a little different scenario, but you would have to plead the fifth. Like you can't just start talking to police if you get arrested, whether you're guilty or innocent. This is sort of similar because he was guilty. There's no way you can go talk to police outside your house. You just can't, right? So they had to pretend like they didn't know what was going on. That's why Jen doesn't go running into the house. Because if Jen McCabe really did find a body on the lawn of her sister's house of a guy who she was hanging out with the night before and hadn't seen him before, she would have run into her sister's house, turned on all the lights, screamed and yelled, "Help, guys, get help," So all of that is all evidence of guilt, right? It's all guilt. It starts from the jump and it's the through line all the way through. It's so crazy because there's so clearly evidence of consciousness of guilt the entire time. But here's the difference, and this is new, and this is why this particular project I think is important, because for all of this time, for 4 years, most of us, myself included, have had Julie and Sarah as a barrier to being able to see this case clearly. And part of what my motivation is helping people to see those two in a different way. Because, and I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm not trying to paint them as bad in some way. Simply that they have information. They are not, just people that were there having a party. And, they are absolutely deceptive throughout their testimonies. And as much involved in all of this as anybody else, right? As Jen, I mean, not quite, but you know what I'm saying. I just want to make it clear that they are being deceptive. I mean, without a doubt, right? So, at Marvel's Production, sends $4.99. Why did BA have his arm in a sling? To my knowledge, Marvel's, I don't know that anybody's been able to date that photo. So that would be a question for Turtle Boy probably, or like if Sherry D was here, Sherry would be a good person to ask that question to. Somebody who was around in the very early days of this case, who might know when that photo first appeared, and at least have some idea like when it might have been. Aiden might know that. That's a question. It's a good question. I'll write that down. Every once in a while, I'll remember, like I'll think of a question to ask him and then forget it. That's a good one for him because he might have a better idea. Certainly, I mean, some people have suggested that the reason that they didn't go to the funeral was because they had injuries, right? I mean, so somebody was asking about the funeral earlier, and I have heard that before, that there were injuries. That's why they didn't go. I have no idea if that's true or not, though. And I don't know how we would be able to confirm that. So Mark says, good call. I never thought of that, but I don't know what you are talking about exactly. I'm assuming this is about the legal stuff, the lawsuit stuff. But I don't know. Yay, Suzette's a member. Welcome, Suzette. Oh, don't forget, for all of our new members, don't forget, make sure you check out the classes. Look at them. There's endless material in there. They are in your membership area. You can also find access to them on our community wall if you go through my posts. So don't forget to take a look at that. Hello at Tree Landon. She says 1999. I've been thinking that for a long time about luminol spray to show blood on the fireplace, in the basement, etc. Plus, obvious knowledge of culpability, both Brian's disposal of the phone and their BS reasons. They sound so dumb. I know. Isn't it unbelievable that the two of them actually testify, Tree Landon? They testify in court that they both destroyed their phones the day before the order. The day before. The day before the order. The day before. It's like they just have to admit it because that's exactly what happened. And they know how that sounds. They both know how it sounds, but they also know there's nothing you can do about it. And they're not the ones on trial. But I also believe they must believe that they have destroyed any cell phone evidence that still would exist. They have to believe that. There's no way that they are going to file these lawsuits and like know that they are exposed in such an enormous way. So they must have spent the last year after the verdict preparing for this possibility. And I think that is what all of, like, I think that's what they've been doing for a while. I think that's what the Testify silliness campaign was all about, right? The billboards, showing up on these different talk shows, Chris and Carrie, whoever can, you'll note who doesn't ever show up, right? Brian Higgins doesn't ever show up. Jen McCabe never shows up. It's always Chris and Carrie, which makes sense because, you know, they have absolutely nothing to do with whatever's going on in the house at 34 Fairview on this night. So thank you so much, Tree Landon, for your support. We appreciate you so much. Love from Tejas is a member for 2 months. Happy anniversary, Love from Tejas. Love your content and learning so much. Schmugs could be a motive. Schmugs? Am I reading that right? What does that mean? Am I completely crazy right now that I don't know what this means? Sometimes, like, my brain is like, so I can't even like see something that's obvious. I don't know what you mean by that, but you tell me what you mean by that, dear, because I don't know what you mean by that. Bob is my name, sends $10. Hi, Bob is my name. I love your puppy. Samantha, I followed this case since, I live in Canton. Oh, well, I appreciate you for saying that. Jesus. Thank you. Not a genius, though. Just somebody who's been really obsessed with this case for a long time. That's it. But I appreciate you, and I'm super glad that you are appreciative of the work. And there's more, Bob. I said, you guys are going to laugh at me, but I actually texted some of our friends and content creators that you might know. And I said, guys, I'm putting out this video and I know it's, just my theory, but if anything happens to me, I'm going on the record to say, we know who it was. Now I'm being silly. I'm not actually accusing somebody of that, but because it feels like somehow like if I was getting close and what I'm saying is true, there's going to be people who don't like it. I got a little nervous when I saw that photo the other day. I don't know how long that had been out there. I don't know anything about it. Emily C sent it to me, the picture of them at the kitchen island. But I got a little anxious when I saw that because I was like, oh, why is this here all of a sudden? Like, why is somebody feeling the need to like you have to be compelled to do something like that, right? If you haven't done it up until now. So I just got nervous when I saw that. And I get it. Like they're also maybe, what's the word I'm looking for? Emboldened by the lawsuit. So that makes sense. But I appreciate you, Bob is my name, and thank you for saying that. All right, let's try to get through this. We're going to go a little longer. I think we're so close, you guys. We're almost done with this video, so maybe we can actually get it done. That would be miraculous. All right, here we go. I'm going to shut up now. Add. Okay. Somebody else made a suggestion, and they agreed. But dear Sarah here is evidencing clear signs of not wanting to stay.
If you want, myself and Matt can drive you home a little bit later. So we agreed to that. And
so importantly, really pay attention here. What she's saying is we agreed before Julie went outside that we were staying. Now that's going to be different from what Julie says. So this story serves a number of important functions for them. One, they're telling us that Julie made her mind up before she went outside. That's important. Two, they're trying to say, oh yeah, Jen and everybody said, oh, ask your brother to come in. And they need a reason why they are deciding to stay. So that is what this story is all about. That's why she's taking a full minute to enlighten all of us with it. Also keep in mind, the question was, what's the new plan? And the right answer is, we were going with Jen and Matt. So this is just complete and utter deception. And keep something else in mind. Remember, we got this story from Julie during trial number 1, but Julie wasn't testifying in trial number 2. So it became Sarah's responsibility to find a way to get this in.
When you texted Ryan that night, you were contacting him because you thought it was an appropriate time for you to leave, correct?
Yeah.
How long did it take your brother Ryan to get to the Albert home after that text message?
I don't know.
So right away, you note that she is completely defended. She's got her football linebacker stance on. Her arms are folded in front of her. She's upright completely. She's doing everything she can to deflect, not to answer. And she's lying, actually. She's being deceptive.
When you texted Ryan that night, you were contacting him because you thought it was an appropriate time for you to leave, correct?
Yeah.
How long did it take your brother Ryan to get to the Albert home after that text message?
I don't know. I don't know.
Was it an hour?
I don't think so, no.
Was it a half hour?
I do not know. I do not know.
So one thing we know for sure, she absolutely knows the answer to this question. And look at how distressed she looks. She is distressed. She is defended to the extreme. She's actually giving dirty looks to David Yannetti. And back to this question about how innocent Julie and Sarah are. This is not just, I'm defending my friend. I'm being mean to David Yannetti because he's being mean to my friend Brian Jr. I mean, this is like, I'm gonna F you up looks. This is like life and death. Not for Brian, but for Julie. So we have to ask, is this an innocent witness defending their buddy, their pal? Or is this somebody defending themselves because their life is on the line?
So you have no idea how long it took him to get there and how long you stayed after you texted him, correct?
I don't know. No. I don't know. No.
Between the time that you texted your brother Ryan and the time he arrived, fair to say that you changed your mind about going home with him, correct?
Yes.
You changed your mind while you were still inside the Albert home, correct?
I did not say that, no.
Well, I'm asking you now.
No.
Wait, what was that?
You changed your mind while you were still inside the Albert home, correct?
I did not say that, no.
Well, I'm asking you now.
No.
Okay, this is clear deception here because of the way she says this. Julie all along uses contractions. Here she uncontracts. I did not. And then she says no at the end. So this is deception. She put the explanation before the answer, yes or no. She also, I just realized, she also says, I did not say that. That. So this is deception. It's also, I don't like that. That meaning Yanetti's suggesting that she made her mind up before she went outside to talk to her brother. So she doesn't like thinking back to the conversation that she had with Sarah and Jen about whether to stay or to go. So this is deception without a doubt, but it's also indicative of this is scary. Like this is a scary situation for her, right? I mean, look how defended she is. You're going to see in a minute what she looks like when Lally's asking the question versus Yannetti. It's funny, maybe at some point I'll do this if I have time. You got to see how different they are too, the witnesses, when it's Lally versus Hank Brennan. There's a very big difference. Julie's not in trial too, but there is a difference too, like with Jen and how she answers questions. They're a lot more comfortable with Adam Lally. I'll just say it that way. No, that is deception. So she's lying here. And that's interesting. I mean, we've already got a lot of testimony, even in trial 1, that suggests they absolutely discussed before her brother pulled up whether they were staying or going, right? Obviously, they kind of had to because they needed a ride before they let their ride go. So she makes a point to say no here to this question. And that's important. Because why? Julie clearly is not, and I hate to be mean, I'm not trying to be mean here when I say this. Like, it's just based on her testimony, I'm saying this. She's not necessarily the sharpest. So she's not thinking strategically or analytically about her testimony. She's simply trying to be obstructionist every place she can. And I'll give you an example. Sarah, when asked about what time Colin Albert came or left, says, I don't know. And that is the smart answer. I mean, let's be honest. In fact, I think anytime she's asked anything about Colin, she says, I don't know, or I can't remember, or I don't remember. And that is what you should say. Julie tries to make it sound like Colin definitively left before everybody else got to the house.
But I know that Catherine Duty, Emily Fabiano, Mary Kent, and Courtney Alba left. I would say, and Colin left like before midnight.
Now, with reference to Colin Albert, do you know about what time he left?
I would probably say 11:30, 11:45.
And as you already know, this is a completely different story from the one that Colin and actually the rest of the group gives entirely.
As I was walking out, I saw my Uncle Brian and my Aunt Nicole.
Then she says she saw him leave. She watched him leave. So when Lally follows up with her and says, oh, you did? Which door did he go out?
But do you recall specifically seeing him leave from the house?
Yes.
And which door would he have left on?
I'm not sure exactly what door, but I know someone did pick him up, but I'm not sure who did. So.
Oh, I don't know, but I know he did get picked up. You know, she gets caught. And that happens a number of times. So you can see that she's more black and white in how she thinks, because she tries to be a lot more absolute, but then gets busted many times throughout. And this is similar because By being definitive with Yannetti, it highlights not only that she's lying, but that she would have a reason to lie. Now, why would you lie about this? Why is this a reason to lie? Who cares whether you made the decision when you're walking out, when you spoke to your brother, or before you got in the car? If it's an innocent decision, who the hell cares? But this is the problem that Julie gets herself into over and over again. She's not sophisticated, I guess is the best way to say it. So she's not strategic in her answers. And it gives a lot away. It gives away the fact that making this decision to stay or go turns out to be an important one, is one that has great significance, enough to lie during a murder trial on the witness stand about it.
You changed your mind while you were still inside the Albert home, correct?
I did not say that, no. Yes, he did text me saying that he was outside.
Looks a little different, right? When she's talking to Adam Lally.
And upon receiving that text, where did you go?
I went out through the front door.
Do you remember what door your sister came out of?
She came out of the side door,
I went out through the front door.
which is to the left of the garage.
Did you watch her?
Yes.
Where did she walk? From where to where?
She walked out of that door down the driveway towards us.
And so you get to the truck. Do you recall how it was that you were speaking to your brother Ryan? Was it sort of through an open window? Did you open the door? Or how were you communicating?
He rolled down his window.
I opened the door just because I assumed she was going to jump in the back seat.
And when you came out to the truck at the end of the driveway, what, if any, other vehicles did you see in the area of the house on Fairview?
Well, before when I went outside, I did notice another vehicle before my brother pulled up.
The one piece of information in here that we cannot ignore under any circumstance is this. Julie Nagel believes with her whole heart that Karen Reed is in front of that house before her brother. And there is only one way, only one, that she could believe that. Only one. And because she does not realize that everybody else knows that's not the case, that everybody else knows that her brother and Heather and Ricky were behind Karen's Lexus. Because she doesn't know that. You know why she doesn't know that? Because when she walked outside to speak to her brother, she had tunnel vision on. Yes, she had been drinking all night, for sure. But I'll tell you what, if I had just witnessed some police officer lose his life, and everybody is saying to me, go get rid of your brother, I'm going to walk that walk and not see a goddamn thing at all. Probably not even see my brother. So she doesn't know that Karen's Lexus was there. She doesn't know that everybody else knows for sure that Karen was in front of her brother. And she's there the whole time because her brother and Heather see Karen sitting in the driver's seat with the overhead light on. But they never see John. At least they never admit to seeing John. This, to me, is definitive. There's no way around it. There's no other way for Julie Nagel to believe with her whole heart that Karen Reed is there before her brother and not when her brother's there, except that she knows and saw John O'Keefe inside the house before she walks out. Now, thanks to Jennifer, we have a timeline. Yes, we do. And that is where we will pick things up next time. All right. So We made it to the end of the video. I don't even believe it. I can't believe it. I'm so excited that we did that. It's so hard for me to keep my mouth shut. So I was like really not sure we were going to do it, but we did. Yay, we did it. Awesome. Okay, good. So that is where we are in this saga. And I'm going to reiterate this again. The fact that Julie Nagel is sure, there's no other way. I can't even stress this enough. There's no other way that she could possibly be sure that Karen was there before her brother, because she wasn't, right? Karen Reed is not there before her brother. Karen Reed is there simultaneously, maybe with a 30-second like differential. There's a maybe 30-second difference. And could it be just enough time for them to park and John to be walking across the lawn into the house quickly? Like Karen says, he kind of skipped when he walked, right? Quickly, so that those guys, Ryan and Ricky and Heather, don't see him do it or won't admit that they do. And we don't know how long. Jen does. Jennifer knows exactly how long between text messages because she has the timeline. So she knows exactly how long it was. And that's why I have to go back and pay closer attention to what she's saying. Trial 1 on cross-examination with Alan Jackson. Remember, Jen gives a lot away. If you want to try to put the puzzle pieces together, her testimony is a good one to study. And to be fair, I haven't done my own due diligence because she's on the stand forever, 2 trials, right? There's a lot of information that comes from her, and she's tough to listen to for long, long periods of time. But she gives you a ton of information, and a lot of it is good. It's good. Like there's good information mixed in with all the crap. So I think it might be worth taking a closer look at, because the question I am trying to ask, in case it's not clear for anyone who jumped in late, is it possible that John O'Keefe walks into this house and almost immediately gets into some kind of a fight with Brian Higgins that results Chloe, Brian Albert, fireplace, right? I do feel a little bit like we're playing a game of Clue, and it's not Clue. This is not a game. This is true. This is what my real belief is right now. He walks into the house, loses his life right there in that family room on that fireplace. Because if you look at the marks on the back of his head, it looks like he could have hit that top ledge, scraped down to get that like fan pattern almost, and then crushed the back of his skull on the fireplace proper. That's what it looks like. That's my current theory. But it happened really fast. It would have had to have happened, we're talking about minutes, because it would have had to have either happened or been happening with enough time for Julie and Sarah to be told that they have to get rid of her brother. Because when Sarah says that we agreed, that does not make sense. Okay, that doesn't make sense. So what she's saying there is, oh, Jen was like, oh, why don't you guys stay? And you're the last like friends here, and the rest are just family, right? When she does that, her response is, we agreed to that. Wait, what? What do you mean you agreed to that? You don't want to stay? I mean, wouldn't you be like, oh, I'm grateful to hang out and stay? Like, we were excited to get to stay a little longer and celebrate with our friend Bri, right? It's his real birthday now. There are other discrepancies I mean, there's so many. I could spend the rest of my life pointing out all their discrepancies probably. But right now, this is the important sequence that I'm looking at. So we're looking at this lot of time between when Ryan sends that text, here, and what happens between 12:23 and like 12:32, right? That little tiny window. What's everybody doing? Where is everybody? And is it possible that this conflict breaks out before Julie goes outside? You guys, it almost has to be. I mean, think about it. This is such extreme consciousness of guilt. It's hard not to start to come to that conclusion. I'll put it that way. So I don't know. We've got more work to do, everybody. More work to do. So more work to do. And hopefully you guys will help me to do it, because this is a tremendous amount of work. It really, really is. At Melly Girl sends $5. Are you sharing your findings, suspicions with Karen Reed to help her civil case? You are doing a great investigation. Mark Sanjano keeps head, could be from his hat too. That's a great point. Right, Melly Girl. He's got a hat on. Hello. Duh. Right. See, this is what I mean. I need you guys. Right, of course they can be. Like some of those marks could be, sure, right? Could that be? My God, that means that, all right, we got to look at that hat. Got to look at that hat more closely. It's just a standard baseball cap, right? He was wearing a standard baseball cap. Because I would be curious, got to look at that. Melly Girl, good call. That was an awesome call. We're definitely looking closer at that. At Julie G. Oss sends $7.99 in, I believe, Australian dollars. Hi, Sam. Love listening to your shows all the way from Melbourne, Australia. First time super chatting. You're the best. Oh, thank you for being here with me. I can't believe you're like all the way. You're so far away. You're like on the other side of the universe. So we welcome you, Julie G. And thank you so much for being here and for your support. I truly, truly appreciate it. At Amber Donald 3285 is a member. Yay, Amber. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Like I said, new members. Wait. I got to remember a few of you. Hold on. I took a screenshot from earlier so that I could make sure and just not miss anybody. Did I miss? Where is it? It's not. I took a screenshot because there was a few new members, and when I start the show, it deletes the whole chat. So I missed it, but now it's not here. So I don't know why. Maybe I thought I took a picture and I didn't. Next time I absolutely will. So if I did not acknowledge you because you became a member before the show started, I apologize. I am working so hard on that. So my sincerest appreciation to all of our new members, and don't forget to check out the classes because they are huge. They are an enormous resource. Even if you're just curious, you don't need them for anything, but check them out. They are super interesting at the very least. At Tutti Frutti, 61 cents, $4.99. I just wanted to say that luminol does not clean up blood forever. It illuminates blood. So if the owner would allow testing, we would know for sure. So interestingly, well, I think the owner, it's something that we are sort of discussing, percolating on, right? Because it's not an impossibility. It's not an impossibility, but somebody earlier made an incredibly, pertinent point. They would have known that too, and probably would have used luminol to clean up and would have been working on that. I mean, there's no way that those guys are going to leave that house with any obvious traces of blood or bodily fluids. Like, they're going to make sure that place is as cleaned up as it could be before they left it, right? Because think about it. Would you leave that? If somebody died in your living room, would you leave that house? Until you knew for sure that it was as, clean as it could possibly be, right? Hello, CC Headband Cupcake Law Nerd. She sends $9.99. BA scheduled and had rotator cuffs. Oh, shortly after February 22nd, AJ said maybe hurt it in a fight. Lally said, nope, it was previously injured, so therefore he couldn't have been in a fight. Really? He had rotator cuff surgery in February of 22. Where did you get that, Cece? Where is that? How come I don't know that? Like, I don't remember ever hearing him questioned about that, right? That's crazy. That's February of 2022. That's insane. Now look, rotator cuff surgery, you could, it's true that you could have had injuries in the past, whatever. But there's no more incriminating time than that. That's as incriminating as it could possibly be, right? Jesus, Cece, thank you for that. And remember, look, I also, this is another question for Aiden. I'm curious, and maybe you guys might already know this too. Like, why does Turtle Boy does he believe that Scanlon had information that he brought, or that he was pontificating based on who he knew the personalities of the people involved to be? Because I could see it both ways, right? And I know he had a direct conversation with him, so he might know the answer to that, or at least have more insight than we do. Thank you for this, Cece. That's really helpful. I don't know how you knew that, but that's really helpful. At Joy Whitelaw, happy anniversary, member for 5 months. Okay, we need to find someone that can go into the house that has access to the blue spray, that is used to finding blood, even if it's been cleaned up. Good point. Maybe. I was thinking, my father, people know, and I was thinking maybe he would have somebody that could do it with us, and we could all take a trip up to Boston. That'd be like a fun weekend adventure, right? That would be awesome. Go spend a weekend in Boston. We can catch, their baseball. I'm not a huge fan of, but I'm sure we could convince somebody to do that, right? At Dashay sends 0803 sends $2. Marine photo and family room not upstairs on Zillow. Yeah, I know. Well, isn't it hilarious though that there is a marine photo in the family room? Because Dashay, that's like the whole point, right? Like, it gave them. It's always going to be easier to testify to something if it has a kernel of truth in it. So when I saw the marine photo in the back, I died. I really did. I almost died, because it's like, oh, this is the reference that they're drawing from. Either that, or it went up after the fact, right? One or the other. It could be like a little FU to all of us too. Would you be surprised if they did that? Not at all. But you're right, of course, because according to Brian Albert, he's upstairs in his son's room looking at photos of his son in his Marine uniform. At Ricky B sends $2. Yay! Thanks bunches, Sam. You are very, very welcome. Twigs is a member for 9 months. Yay, Twigs! It's our 9-month anniversary. Happy anniversary! That's very exciting. Diane 1166 sends $5. Sam, are you open to the possibility that there was no altercation, that Chloe went after John and knocked him back and hit his head on the fireplace? The only reason why I'm not open to that is because of the injuries on John O'Keefe. So it's extremely unlikely based on a few things. So John, actually, it's not right to say he doesn't have bruises. He does. He has bruises on the backs of both of his hands, more on the right, but also on the left. Then he has a cut on the left side of his nose. What's the one that Karen says she pulled out with the glass? And then he has a cut on the right eyebrow, which to me looks like it could be from, like, if you were wearing a ring and you hit somebody like in the eye, looks like that's exactly where it would be, that little cut. And there's more. He also has bruising to the temple. So to me, it looks like he was in a punching fight. And that's the reason why I've never believed that Chloe was responsible by herself. So it's not that I couldn't believe that. It's just I would need some way to understand how he got both the bruises to the backs of his hands and the cuts on and the bruising to the side of the head. To me, I don't see any other way. Like, I just don't see any other way that you get that very specific set of injuries. The other reason why, there's more than just that though, too, Diane. The other reason why I have trouble with that is because of Brian Higgins' testimony. Brian Higgins feels an incredibly overwhelming amount of guilt. I mean, he really does. I mean, there's the man is like at least 3 times during his testimony, he's almost breaks out into tears. 2 of those times I can think of off the top of my head. One is when he's playing video games with John's son. So that's not a reason to cry unless you feel tremendous guilt and shame because you're the one that took away John, right? So there's that. And then the second one is when Alan, this is one of the moments that made me utterly in love with Alan Jackson as an attorney, because Alan Jackson actually knows how to get people emotional. And he knows exactly, he can sense it. It's like he's got this sixth sense for how to know when someone's almost at that brink of emotion and then to walk them over the edge. And he's really masterful at it. He does it utterly stunningly with Brian Higgins. If you go back, start at the part of the cross-examination where they start talking about the car, the Jeep. And he kind of walks him through this whole thing. He gets Brian Higgins to be thinking about his integrity as a police officer, as a medic, as a law enforcement officer, as a firefighter. And then he talks about there not being a body on the lawn. And you can just see like he's crushed. So to me, there's just real guilt evidenced. And I think Brian Higgins is more of an emotional man, period. He clearly has, I throw around the word trauma maybe more than most because it's a familiar word that has like more substance to it. But I would say that guy, between the loss of his father, the loss of his sister, which clearly devastates him. Every time he mentions it, he gets upset. And then this, he just seems like he's carrying a very heavy load, and it seems like this just added to it. So those are the reasons why I don't think that Chloe's responsible. I also would wage a guess. You can't say this definitively, but I think the less people that are directly involved, like if Chloe was really responsible and all the witnesses could say that, I'm not sure. I mean, do you really? I don't know. I don't know if I have a harder time believing that they wouldn't call it in. So I don't know though. It's a good question. It's not impossible. I'm open to anything. Seriously, Diane, I could be convinced of anything. If you present enough information, I'm down to roll with. I can be convinced of almost anything, probably. At Pia23 sends $19.99. Thank you so much, Pia23. I think the reason for before lies is when the adults get back to the house, they tell the kids about the Karen drama, and the Higgins is going to confront John. Yeah. I mean, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. I just wonder about the amount of time they had. But you're right. It's not impossible. Not impossible at all. The other thing that is always, I guess, is a question for me too, is like, I don't know. I'm just not entirely convinced that we know who was there. And maybe I'm just being paranoid, but with these guys, I just don't trust them at all. So it's like, unless I see some like documented evidence of who the hell was in that house at the moment that we're talking about, I just don't know. I don't know who to believe. Because like, I'm very convinced Colin is still in the house. I'm very convinced Caitlin leaves first with the dog, right? And none of this stuff, we don't have documented evidence, but for me, it just came from their testimonies mostly. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. Sure. Definitely could be possible. Definitely. At Janice Darmody sends $1.99. Thank you, Janice, for your super sticker. Hi, Cynthia. Hi, Cynthia. She sends $4.99. Could Karen flirting, texting with Brian come up in the car on the way to 34 Fairview? On the way? Yeah. And Karen doesn't remember. Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely, Cynthia. Yes. Yep. Yes. Yes. I think it's a very real possibility. She might actually remember too. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think I had this conversation maybe with Vince like 3 weeks ago. When we were maybe a little bit more than that, when we were looking back at the waterfall video, and anybody that hasn't, I put up a video. You can go right to my video wall, and you'll see that there's just a cleaned up version of the waterfall video. If you go to that and you go to the very end, watch just the part with the lights on after Brian Higgins and all those guys leave, you'll see that it's not clear. So I think it's very possible, Cynthia, that John did see Karen flirting with Brian at the end of that barred thing. At the end of because Karen does end up like flirting with Brian right before they walk out the door, right before Brian Higgins leaves. And if John is standing right there, he doesn't seem like he's watching. He doesn't appear to have any reaction that's obvious, but he definitely could have. And he definitely could have walked into that house hot, 100%. I don't think they had enough time to get into a fight, right? Because a fight, the kind of personality that Karen is, remember the fight during the day? You remember how she was calling, and he's like, Karen, stop calling. And she would just keep texting and keep calling. So I don't think they were in a fight because I don't think she would have let it go. She would have but maybe she didn't let it go, did she? Wait, let me stop and think about this. She kind of didn't let it go, right? She did call. She was calling him. She called 56 times, I think. Actually. So the answer is yes. It is very possible. Yep. And she might remember also, Cynthia. And the reason I say that is because, we've been sort of debating this amongst us for a while, but Vince and I have been trying to figure out why didn't Karen ever think Higgins was involved? Because she didn't seem like she blamed him. She was really much more focused on Brian Albert and Colin Albert. And we've been sort of tossing around why. Because he seems to me to be the most obvious culprit. So it could be because of this. Because there was an argument that she doesn't want to talk about. I don't know, Cynthia, but I think yes is the answer to the question. Absolutely. I think the answer is yes. Could definitely be. At Char Michael. Hi, Char Michael sends $2.99 in Australian. I think is that Australian dollars? I don't know. Take a ring cam to prove view from the house across the road. Oh, that's such a good idea, right? The only problem is, I think Aiden would probably know, but we don't know where it was. We have to see where it was, because I think he did do that. There is a video of him trying to do what you're saying, trying to show what the angle would have been to see whether or not you could see from across the street. And it appears like you could. So, I mean, certainly where that house is, if John was hit by a car, you could see it, right? It's staring right at the flagpole, that camera. So it's, they don't want to see that though, right? They don't want to see that. All right, you guys. I think we made it through everybody. Wow, you guys, don't forget, hit the like button if you haven't already. Denise, the most amazing moderator in the whole universe. Thank you so much. You are a rock star. We've been here for almost 4 hours. Denise is amazing. Everybody give much, much love to Denise. She's like an angel sent from above. So we love you. We love you, Denise. You guys have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday night. Enjoy it. Thank you so much for your support. You guys are incredible. I also want to just quickly say thank you to the Trial channel for their footage, because a lot of what I get, I am able to get it quickly because of them. And thank you to them. And if you haven't, check out the Trial Files, which is like the sister channel to the Trial channel. So, everybody have a great rest of your night, and I will see you Monday nooner with Loophole Lawyer. Goodbye, everybody.
It is the defense counselor's
Night, everybody.
duty to protect the rights of the individual, as it is the prosecution's duty to uphold and defend the laws of the state. Justice for all. Only we have a problem here.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in their cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright.
This is me reminding you to like this video. Like the video. I promise if you get up right now and you like this video, I will never sing again. Comment, subscribe,